if you're one of our haters who are out there watching.
I want to warn people about hypnoporn.
We need to stay meta.
Stop that.
Need new tires? Like, what?
If Jim would shut up for a second.
Oh, high fidelity.
Okay, don't tell me to shut up.
I'm not whining.
I eat doggies. I eat doggies. Feels like a party.
Stop that. It's a war. They have made it so that I cannot be celebrating July 4th.
I don't care. I'm gonna lie, I'm not gonna pretend. I don't care. How do I think? That's what I think. I don't care.
We're going to have to be smart. We're going to have to be strategic. We're going to have to be aggressive. I'm an alpha guy.
I'll flip a table every time you aren't getting by.
Let's go. Just push.
It's all psychological warfare.
I'm not part of QAnon.
We know what they are doing.
For Trump. Ba-da-da-da-da.
If shit goes wrong, like, I will literally have to leave the country. Stop that. I'll land my initial plane.
Okay, high five. This isn't the hi-fi show.
Good night. Nighty-night.
This is 6 Degrees of Stew. You don't need to stay meta, but I'm glad you're here. Hey everyone, and welcome back to 6 Degrees of Stew. I'm your host, Shelby. If you're here listening again, thank you. And if you're a new listener, I'm happy you're here. I had some, well, let's be honest, a lot of technical difficulties, learning how all of my recording software works, and a lot more. I mean, I really did just find this scriptwriter and teleprompter on my software. I'm terrible at technology. I know some of my friends listening out there know this story, but I'm going to tell it just one more time. I really did just learn at the end of December 2023 that my phone even had a screen record on it. I didn't know how people did that. So I've spent many hours tweaking things and learning. I hope when you listen to this episode and the ones coming in the future, you can see some improvements. I've worked really hard, and I'll continue doing so. I want to send props to those out there behind the scenes who make podcasts sound amazing, and to those out there doing it solo, you're doing a great job too. I want to thank everyone who has supported this podcast so far. It really does mean a lot to me. I love doing these deep dives into people, groups, and a variety of topics, and it wasn't so easy on Into the Stew-niverse to do that. The research really is my favorite part. It's exciting to me when I find new pieces of information to share with other people. I hope throughout this podcast, I am able to bring something new to you that you may not have known before you listen to this podcast. I've also been pondering how to begin my episodes as well. Some podcasts begin with a joke, how their day was going, how the world's doing, things of that nature. I landed on mixing it up, kind of freewheeling each episode. So, today, let's talk about Gumby. Yeah, Gumby. That Gumby. Like the Eddie Murphy skit from SNL. I'm Gumby, damn it.
I'm Gumby, damn it!
I love Gumby. Not for that reason, though. People seem to think that. It's weird, but I get it, though. My grandma collected Gumby. She was a fan of the show and the creator, Art Cloakley. When she passed, I was in middle school, and the family passed her collection on to me. I love hunting for that rare old Gumby piece at garage sales, flea markets, or even a unique item I might find in a store. My good friend Steph Kremer sent me a link not too long ago that Riff Tracks did on some Gumby shorts. They were really funny. I've watched them a few times. It is great to see that Gumby still holds a place in pop culture even today. So if you see something Gumby related, listeners, DM me or post it on my Twitter. I am always seeking anything Gumby related. Even memes. I really enjoy those too. So, we know Gumby is made of clay and can be molded into different shapes. My son and I, much like Gumby, molded ourselves to blend in with the crowd at the Tucker Carlson event in Reading, PA. We were there to observe the crowd, interactions, and their reactions to Tucker, Posobiec, and Jones. We're from the western side of PA, and the drive took us about 3.5 hours. We arrived about an hour and a half early for the event, so we parked in the garage and we walked a few blocks looking for somewhere to grab a quick bite to eat. We found an amazing place called Mi Casa, Su Casa. If you're ever in the area, I highly recommend the restaurant. We got there just in time before the crowd arrived in all of their regalia. It varied from toned-down attire, a couple who looked like they were going out on a date, to a woman who came in with a sparkly red, white, and blue cowboy hat on, boots, pants, and a shirt that all matched. After we finished eating, we went and sat down on some benches near the restaurant under some trees. It was sprinkling outside, and we forgot our umbrellas. We met a woman who drove from South Carolina just to see Alex Jones. And in talking to her, she told us that she had just met 2 women who flew from the UK to see Jones too. It appeared that he was a big draw. After some chatting, we decided to go get in line as it was nearing about 40 minutes before they would let us in. In front of us was a couple, like they were out for a dinner date, just as in the restaurant we had been at. Behind us was a couple that we would later find had driven from Massachusetts. We began talking to the couple in front of us and noticed a Cybertruck was parked in the parking lot across from us. Together we all began mocking the Cybertruck because they are quite ridiculous when you see them in person. I mean, they are just absolutely the most absurd and ugly things you have ever seen. It's my first time seeing one in the wild and not, on social media or anything like that. We then started conversing with the couple behind us, and we were just talking about regular things, where they had driven from. Upon further inspection, I noticed that her husband was wearing a 3%er shirt. This was something I was going to have to discuss with my son on our way home. Behind them were 2 guys who, if I had to guess, were in their mid-20s. They also got into our conversation. They all loved their guns, and nobody was going to take them. They began talking about gun regulations and things of that nature across different states. My son and I just kind of nodded along, blending in again. We didn't really talk about guns or anything. We didn't want to get into that talk. We were just there to observe. No confrontations or anything like that. It got a little bit crazy and dark, so my son and I turned around to peer through the fence at the activities that were going on through it as we kind of listened in. And the men in their mid-20s were discussing gun registration laws in the state they were from, and they were discussing a camp they had. And they said if the law came to get their guns, they said they had about 20 between them that were registered. But if those guns got taken, they had 20 more unregistered ones to replace them. So good luck, law enforcement. Thankfully, Alex Jones made an appearance for a smoky break, and the gun talk stopped. I never thought I'd be thankful to see Alex Jones appear anywhere, but I was thankful then. Once the excitement was over for Alex Jones, things returned to normal. We all just talked about how far we drove, where we ate, the rain on our drives, because apparently it rained up and down the East Coast, and we were all talking about that. And then the deep state marauder came walking down the line we were in. That's right, Ivan Raiklin, Trump's Secretary of Retribution. And I'm going to pause here and I'm going to talk just briefly about who Ivan Raiklin is for anybody who may not know. And this is a really good article, and there have been many articles written about Ivan Raiklin, but I think one of the most important breaking articles was from Raw's Story, and it was written on July 10th of 2024. And the title is Trump's Secretary of Retribution has a target list of 350 people he wants arrested. And it was written by Jordan Green and Mark Alazia. I'm only going to read a few parts of this because the Raw Story article is very in-depth. I will link it in my sources, and that will be on Into the Stuniverse. It will be a note under the highlights. Retribution is at the center of Donald Trump's third presidential election campaign. Quote, "I am your warrior," Trump proclaimed earlier this year. "I am your justice, and for those who have been wronged and betrayed, I am your retribution." Trump's loyal surrogates have duly embraced the project, perhaps no more zealously than Ivan Raiklin, a retired Army Reserve lieutenant colonel and former U.S. Defense Intelligence Agency employee who bills himself as the former and would-be president's, quote, future Secretary of Retribution. Raglan is seeking to enlist so-called constitutional sheriffs in rural conservative counties across the country to detain Trump's political enemies, or as he says, carry out, quote, live stream swatting raids against individuals on his deep state target list. The list Raglan has been circulating since January is extensive. It includes numerous Democratic and Republican elected officials, FBI intelligence officials, members of the House Select January 6 Committee, U.S. Capitol Police officers and civilian employees, witnesses in Trump's 2 impeachment trials and the January 6 committee hearings, and journalists from publications ranging from CNN and the Washington Post to Reuters and Raw Story, all considered political enemies of Trump. Quote, my nickname is the Deep State Marauder, aka the Mauler, Raglan told a group of election deniers in New Jersey earlier this year, and I like using ice picks instead of poking the bear. In a video posted in May to X, which now accrued more than 10 million views, Raglan said, expect to see live stream swatting raids of every single individual on that deep state target list because the precedence has already been set. Look at my entire deep state target list, Raglan said. This is the beginning. This is just scratching of the surface of who is going to be criminalized for their treason, okay? Raw Story goes on to do a very good in-depth biography on who Ivan Raglan is, and I'm just going to pick out a few relevant parts to this podcast episode that I'm producing right now. In 2019, he appeared at a QAnon-themed fundraiser for retired Lieutenant General Mike Flynn, Trump's former national security advisor, whom Raglan met in 2010. Flynn and Raglan have become close in recent years, with Raglan urging Trump to select Flynn as his vice presidential running mate, and Flynn featuring Raglan in his current speaking tour. Roughly a week after the 2020 election, when major media outlets had called the election for Democratic candidate Joe Biden, Raglan went on Alex Jones's conspiracy theory show, InfoWars, and confidently predicted that Trump would ultimately obtain the necessary number of electoral votes to secure re-election. Quote, I absolutely guarantee it, he said, 100%, unequivocally, full stop. There is no possibility that he does not reach 270. Raglan's primary contribution to the effort to overturn the 2020 election is a memo he drafted for the benefit of Trump's presidential campaign. Entitled Operation Pence Card, it proffered a novel legal argument that Vice President Mike Pence held the authority to set aside electoral votes from states narrowly carried by Biden. The plan is widely associated with attorney John Eastman, who now faces charges of racketeering and conspiracy in Georgia and conspiracy fraud and forgery in Arizona. But Raglan actually tweeted out his plan one day before Eastman drafted his now infamous Stop the Steal memo. And Raglan wielded enough influence that Trump himself, on December 23, 2020, retweeted Raglan's Operation Pence Card tweet to his tens of millions of followers. Around the same time, Raglan dined with then Representative-elect Marjorie Taylor Greene, who attended a meeting at the White House along with other House Republicans to discuss plans to object on January 6th to the congressional certification of the presidential election, the final, generally ceremonial step before a presidential inauguration. On January 4th, 2021, Raglan had told Jerome Corsi, a longtime conspiracy theorist, who was also, by the way, Alex Jones's DC correspondent for a while and was an InfoWars employee, that with regard to Trump supporters descending on Washington, D.C. en masse, quote, I'm not calling for any violence, but at the same time, I can't stop people from committing it. Raglan was at the U.S. Capitol on January 6th when a pro-Trump mob breached Congress's defense and temporarily stopped lawmakers' electoral vote certification. Raglan has not been charged with any crime related to the attack. And the Raw Story article is really good. And like I said, I'll link it because there is so much more in there. It goes into depth about the constitutional sheriffs, about more things about January 6th, Dr. Fauci. There's a lot more in this article. It's really good, so I will link that. So let's continue. We have Ivan Raiklin coming down, the deep state marauder. It was odd to watch. No one really seemed to know who he was or shouting out his name. It was not until he got to our group that Mrs. Massachusetts called out to him, and he stopped. He was kind of shaking everybody's hands and things like that in our little 6-person group. And I asked him if we could take a picture. He seemed very excited about that somebody actually was stopping him. So I was kind of fumbling with my phone trying to get the passcode to unlock it. And I was like, I'm sorry, hold on 1 second, I'll get it. He's like, no, take your time. It's fine. That's what I'm here for. Warm the crowd up. That's my job. That's what I do is get the crowd going. I was like, okay. And so my son took our picture. Then he asked Mrs. Massachusetts a question. And she come vulnerable and she's like, I don't know, ask her. And that was me. And I didn't hear what the question was. And he's like, oh, you guys don't know. And I was like, thinking in my head, come on, think. Ivan Raiklin, what's his favorite thing? And I was like, oh, your deep state target list board that you take to the Flynn movie tour I've seen you on. And he was like, oh, you like the board, huh? I don't. And I told him, yeah, it's really good, but I think it might need updated. He's like, yeah, it probably needs updated. And then he kind of laughed and he kept walking along. But yeah, that was Ivan Raiklin and my experience with him. Nobody, like I said, nobody really seemed to know who he was, which I found interesting because this should be his crowd of people who would want to, oh my gosh, Ivan's here. I've seen him, he hangs out behind all the congressional hearings. He taunts Dr. Fauci, all of these things. He did the Pence card before John Eastman. He's on the Flynn movie tour. But I didn't experience that where I was, and it was a very long line. And I don't know, that was interesting for me. After Ivan had walked down a bit, we heard the crowd going absolutely wild up in front of us. And I wasn't sure who had arrived, if Alex had come out between the fence, because it wasn't a very secure area, I've got to say, of where they came in and out. So I wasn't sure if Alex had come out or why everybody was screaming. Here, it turns out there were J6ers. And I didn't get to see who they were. I tried to look, but we were down further in the line, so I couldn't see. But people were taking pictures. And I looked when we went inside in the VIP section. I'm assuming they were guests of like Ivan Raiklin or whoever else was there. I looked up in kind of the boxes that they had there that would be, VIPs, because I could see where Ivan was sitting. But I couldn't make out any of the J6ers or who was there with him. But they were there, and the crowd went crazy for them. Finally, the time came, and we were let in. And there was a sweet elderly lady, and she was in front of me, and she kind of needed some assistance, so I was helping her along, and she asked who I was there to see. And I said, Alex Jones. And she's like, oh, I'm here to see Tucker. I don't know who Alex Jones is. And I was like, you don't know who Alex Jones is? And I was like, oh, he does some stuff with Tucker. And she's like, I don't know who he is. I've never seen him. And I thought that was a little bit odd, but then I thought about it after, I've had some time to process this, that she was an elderly woman and she probably watched Fox News a lot, and she knew the Tucker Carlson of Fox News, not the Tucker Carlson who has X and his subscriber platform now with his locked videos, so she doesn't know that Tucker Carlson. She remembers the Tucker Carlson of Fox News. So she's probably missing that he's not on there anymore, but has fond memories of watching him on there. So she loves Tucker Carlson from there. That's the vibe I was getting, or when I sat and thought on it for a while. And like I said, I've had some time to process that and why she probably doesn't know who Alex Jones is. And that made a lot of sense to me. We then got in the arena, and first stop is always to get some drinks, right? So I get this big, tall Smart Water because I'm a very thirsty person. I have a condition that goes along with my lupus. It's another autoimmune disorder. So I knew I was going to be really thirsty, sitting there for however long we had to sit to wait for the actual Tucker Carlson part to start, and Jack and Alex. So I grab my water and I go to the cash register, and they were like, well, we're going to have to pour this in this see-through plastic cup, but it's going to take 2 because of the size of your water. And I said, huh? And she said, yeah, we have to for this event. And I said, well, are there at least lids? I don't, and she said, no, there's no lids for this event either. And I wish I had taken a picture of the sign because they had Y. And I was like, oh, well, I'm going to spill that everywhere. Like, you can't trust me with a cup without a lid. You just can't. So I went back over and I got just a Diet Coke, which I hate Diet Coke. They didn't have my Diet Pepsi. That's what I drink. So I got a Diet Coke and she poured it into the plastic cup, which wasn't even the right. I mean, the plastic waste. Anyways, so I got that drink and we went and took our seats and I started the recorder on my phone. Now, my purpose for recording this event was to capture the commercials, all of the speeches, all of the events going on, things of that nature. I knew Tucker Carlson would post just his conversations with Alex and Jack Posobiec, but I wanted more. I wanted the whole event. What I didn't foresee happening was the gentleman that would come and sit behind us who were racist, homophobic, xenophobic, and so much more. And those get picked up on my recording. And I am glad that that did occur because it shows who MAGA are and the audience that Tucker brings and Jack Posobiec and Alex Jones. These were their people and this is their audience and this is how they speak. And there were elderly people in front of us and you'll hear me talking to this elderly woman about the plastic cups. We have a little conversation, but there were a lot of elderly people sitting around us. And I've always been taught to respect my elders. So they use this language everywhere. And I'm not saying elderly people don't, use language like that either. But I mean, when these people talk about God, church, family, and everything, and you're screaming the language like they were with elderly people sitting around them. And there were several times when I caught the elderly woman I had talked to kind of cringe and turn back a few times. So she was uncomfortable. And I mean, it's kind of ironic because of the event she was at. But yeah, I don't know. It was just, I'm glad I caught it. But I do want to warn everybody listening, content warning because of their language that I did pick up, but I thought it was important to include it to show who MAGA is and who Tucker's audience is, as well as Jack's and Alex's. And also, before their language comes up, I will content warn it again. So this is what I caught and our experiences, and in between some of the recording, I will jump in to explain some things and also fact check because I think that's also important. Oh, we can't talk right now. Yeah.
Whenever I got my drink, I was going to get one of those big waters, and she was like, unfortunately, I have to put it in a cup. And I thought, well, you're not going to be able to fit all my water in there. And I was like, I'll get a little soda. And she's like, well, we don't have lids either. I was like, I still drink so much. This is really a hazard for me to have a... Right? I thought it was very strange myself.
Everything is all good. It's just except I would have preferred.
Yeah, a lid, yeah. And there's no ice either. I like a cold drink too, so eventually it's going to get a little in the cup because it's not, oh well, what are you going to do? I have a drink.
I'd rather everybody be safe.
I guess, yeah.
I don't know. That was myself and the elderly lady talking about our drinks, commiserating over the cups and no lids and the way things were working. Now, I don't know if you caught that. She wanted a lid for sanitary reasons, which I thought was sweet. But at the end, she mentions she would rather everybody be safe, which I thought was interesting because this was Tucker Carlson, Jack Posobiec, and Alex Jones. Everybody's their audience in there, right? You're supposed to feel safe. So what did they think was going to happen with bottles of Smart Water, Diet Cokes, things like that? I mean, they were selling alcohol too, and your beers they had pounders, had to be poured into cups as well. I don't know what they thought was going to happen because that was their audience. And I've been to a lot of stadiums and different events, and I'm sure this has happened other places, but I've never encountered this before. at any place I've been. I mean, Pittsburgh, Boston, New York City, a lot of different places. And this was the first time I've ran into a clear cup, no lids, no straws, and you were walking around like this. I mean, beers I've had before on tap, but like pouring your water or your soda, I don't know. It was just very, very weird. Very, very weird. She was a sweet elderly lady, though. As sweet as somebody can find at an event like this.
These crab fries are worth it. They're not warm at all, but seasoning on it, pretty good. Yeah. I don't know if it's anything more than just Old Bay, but
but it's pretty good.
Pretty good. It is just Old Bay. Well done. Well played. You sure got me.
Yeah, they got you hook, line, and sinker with the crab fry.
But to be fair, like this was $11, but
that's a lot of fries. And for an arena, they didn't short you on how many fries they gave you.
The crab fries. Yeah, we love stadium food. We love food in general. You'll hear more about the crab fries and probably a lot more food and drink talk. It's who we are.
Have a sip of your Coke.
Yeah, honey. It's diet. I hate Diet Coke, but it's what they had. So let me go get you a drink real quick before I begin. Since you're eating.
That probably did that. Thank you, Mom.
You're welcome, hon.
That's a Mom for America right there.
The stadium had started filling up, so we had now started blending in. My son threw out that catchy phrase, "Now that's a Mom for America." They had been playing those commercials over and over and over, and they were a sponsor of the Tucker Carlson tour. When I went to get my son's drink, Moms for America did get me. They had a table set up near the vendor I went to. I had managed to avoid them coming in, but not this time. I was polite, listened to their talk, blah, 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 and told them I had been registered to vote since I was 18. That's what they were trying to do. I got a free pocket constitution, a pen, and some pamphlets. I got out of there pretty quickly by saying I didn't want to miss a single thing that happened inside there. Now, what is interesting about the pocket constitution that they gave me is inside there is a mom's declaration. So I'm going to read some of that for you, just a little bit for your enjoyment so you can see what a mom's declaration for the United States sounds like. Declaration of Mothers, a proclamation and pledge for the preservation of liberty and virtue. The Declaration of Mothers is a proclamation to the nation declaring the principles we want upheld and promoted in our society, schools, government, and communities. It is the voice of mothers who stand for truth, respect God, treasure family, and cherish freedom, committed to nurturing and advancing these principles in their home, communities, and through their vote. As the mothers, primary makers of the home of America and molders of the future of our nation, we declare that liberty and freedom of all people begin in the home, and that a nation is but a magnified home. The values and virtues taught within the family will determine the values and virtues of a nation as a whole. The privilege of living as a free people in a free society is dependent on being a people of faith, virtue, and patriotism, the three pillars of liberty, and these attributes are best developed and nurtured in the home. Each generation has a responsibility to instill a love of liberty and virtue in the hearts of the next generation. To secure the blessings of liberty, the founding fathers of the United States of America created a written constitution under the inspiration of the Almighty God. The preservation of this sacred document and trust is dependent upon each generation who bears the stewardship of safeguarding the Constitution and teaching their children the rights and responsibilities associated with the noble cause of liberty and keeping the Republic. So I have that little pocket thing the Moms from America gave to me. Let's continue.
Oh, this is good.
I got you a Coke for caffeine.
Oh, thank you.
They had like better, like fruit punch and different sodas and barks, and I was like, probably needs caffeine.
Yeah.
want me to put mine here? After sharing that
story that we mentioned earlier about Hunter Biden.
Someone who was the least popular vice president in modern history.
I can tell you this pretzel sticks look amazing when we walk through this big pretzel sticks.
They look good, but I feel like I would be betrayed.
You might be struggling from TDS.
You feel like what?
They look just good enough to betray me.
I know, if they were too dried out or...
That's what I'm worried about.
Instead of believing everything you hear from the mainstream media, independence allows for constructive critical thinking. I used to hear people on the news say things like Donald Trump and the movement.
I bet you thought we were done talking about food. We were not. I told you. We really like discussing food and arena foods and stadiums. It's just, and the pretzels did look really good, but deceiving.
No. Let Jones cook. Let him cook.
Slept on my neck wrong last night. Having Hunter sleep with us with his neck cone on, cone of shame, it's not fun.
Oh, yeah.
He takes up so much room.
Yeah, Hannah pretty much dictates how I sleep, so.
Well, it was bad before with your dad, but with Hunter and the cone of shame.
Okay, so the cone of shame must be addressed. My neck was killing me. Hunter had to have the same surgery again. He had an ear hematoma. And the first one didn't take, so he had a cone of shame for about 2 weeks that first time. And then the ear hematoma came back. We had to repeat the surgery, and then he had a cone of shame again that he just got off on Friday. So we were dealing with the cone of shame for a little over a month, maybe a little longer. And he's crate trained, and he loves his crate. So he has been crying and whining. He's a dog that will even go and lay in it in the daytime. He loves it. And so he's been sleeping with us. And he is a short, chunky little dog. He's part Basset Hound and Dachshund. Absolutely adorable. But he is a wrecking machine too with this cone on. And animal lovers out there, anybody, you know the cone of shame. It is absolutely awful for the animals, but it's terrible for us too. Terrible, terrible, terrible. It was exhausting. And I just really needed to talk about the cone of shame and what hell it has been this past month. Finally sleeping again. Hunter's happy he can sleep in his crate again. Life is back to normal. And fingers crossed, the ear hematoma hasn't come back yet. It came back in 2 days the last time. Still have a flat, floppy ear, so we're doing good. Okay, I feel better. I talked about the cone of shame. Anybody out there who's dealt with the cone of shame? Solidarity.
It's for drug shortages, but if you actually enjoy nicotine patches, you should have one made for you. So I thought, you know what? We're going to offer an alternative. We're going to make it better.
You should give Alex some of those. He was outside smoking.
And I'm very excited about this. And there's two things about it. One,
Did you know in like Nordic countries, like those things are like ubiquitous, like throughout like the female population.
Really?
Yeah. It's like a meme. It's like a meme over
hilarious.
Nordic countries.
What the heck are these? Like nicotine gum?
No, so instead of putting in like a chew, it's a pouch. It's a nicotine pouch.
Oh, we have those in the United States.
So I really didn't know what these were. Apparently Tucker is launching his own nicotine pouch company. It's, I guess, November. And they're called ELP Nicotine Patches. The all-new nicotine pouch by Tucker Carlson. ELP satisfies and frees your mind. At ELP, we believe in a better time. So you can get these nicotine pouches and you can satisfy and free your mind, all while possibly getting cancer of the mouth. You know, when you put the nicotine pouch in down inside your lip there, you know, free your mind and maybe a side of cancer. I don't know. Thanks, Tucker.
My name is Jason Hewlett, and you have never heard of me. I'm just so thankful that Tucker would let me come on tour with him to bring some patriotism to this fine country of ours. Are you guys ready to rock and have a party? Yeah. I love you, thank you. And you know, I'll tell you, every one of us have a voice, and I'm going to make fun of some voices right now.
Enter Jason Hewlett, and this was painful. He was the warm-up. He came out and performed way too many impressions. Way too many. And then he did some jokes in between, and those weren't too bad. They were tolerable after all of the impressions and performances. But I wanted to talk a little bit about Jason before I torture yins with some samples. He is known for clean and family-friendly shows, and he's also a member of the LDS Church. And I found an article that interviewed him. This is an article titled LDS Comedians Keep It Cool While Keeping It Clean from May 16th, 2012. Quote, "When I turned down offers, many said I missed a great opportunity to influence millions in the name of the church," Hewlett says, "but I'd rather keep my standards I know to be true and leave a legacy of faithfulness for my children than possibly lose my chance at spending eternity with them because I was willing to dip my toe in the waters of compromise." Quote, "Yes, it's difficult, and yes, it's challenging, but even more than that, yes, it's possible to be a huge success by keeping it clean," Hewlett says. "People all over the world love clean comedy, want it, appreciate it, and pay a lot for it. I have made my hallmark that of being clean, and I receive incredible compensation for it. In other words, I call it my chance to pay a bigger tithe." Now, after reading more about Jason, his faith, and comedy, I was asking myself how he reconciles all of that by going on stage as a warm-up act for Tucker Carlson, Jack Posobiec, but most importantly, Alex Jones, who perpetuated the lie that no one died at Sandy Hook and that it was a false flag. He has children and a wife. The pain that those families have suffered and continue to suffer is unimaginable because Jones would not stop lying, all so he could make money. I don't know. How do you reconcile that, Jason? Now, obviously, I'm not going to play his whole set or the full recordings for yins because you would go absolutely bonkers. The first recording I have is the Guns N' Roses, which is probably the best of them all, and there's so many. But it was the best, I would say, of them all, and a little chuckle. And then there's a couple others, and then we get to the closing one, which everybody went insane for. So let's continue and see what Jason's like.
You ever tried to sing along to Guns N' Roses? That's a big order. I'll tell you, as a kid, I remember trying to do this voice, and it didn't work until I saw The Simpsons, and I realized Axl Rose's voice is just Marge Simpson singing. I hope you guys are ready for a crazy mashup. You ready? Here we go.
He loses the crowd on this one, and you'll see why.
You guys remember these guys?
To say about this one, my son and I were cringing inside and outside. We actually bumped elbows and we're side-eyeing each other, and it's absolutely awful.
This is not a parody. This is rather a tribute. Because tonight is about spreading joy. Tonight is about some of the greats that I get to sing like. So how about Louis Armstrong? What a wonderful world we live in. I see friends shaking hands, saying how do you do? There is a second
crowd at this point had had about enough of him, and this was not a crowd pleaser either. They were getting very restless.
What if Cher, yes, Cher, didn't have the sound system she needed or the backtracks or the music? I think she would be able to handle it pretty good. She's a pro. She'd come up on stage and be like, what am I supposed to do?
Three guys you will hear throughout my recording have now arrived. This is the crowd favorite, of course. And we sat for the first part. About half of the arena was too. And, well, you will hear when he asked everybody to stand up and be a lot more patriotic. So you will hear our lovely voices blending in, and you'll hear the three gentlemen behind us. And I want to warn you, because after the song ends, it's my content warning to you. They are going to scream out something disgusting. So I just wanted to warn you, and it's kind of contradictory as well. And well, I'll discuss that afterwards. But here we go with the very patriotic song that they all go crazy for.
If you love America, if you let your light shine, I want you to raise those lights up. This is a patriotic song. Sing it with me. If tomorrow all things are gone, I look for all my life. If you love your country, you gotta stand up. From the lakes of Minnesota, yeah, to the hills of Tennessee, sing it. Oh, across the plains of Texas, from sea to shining sea, from Detroit down to Houston, and New York to LA. There's pride in every American heart, and it's time to stand and say, and I'm proud to be an American, where at least I know I'm free, and I won't forget the man who died who gave that right to me, and I'll be stand up next to you, and the fingers still today. Walking to down on this land, God bless the USA. That's my home, and I'm proud to be an American, where at least I know I'm free. And I won't forget the man who died who gave that right to me, and I'll be stand up next to you, and the fingers still today. 'Cause there ain't no doubt about this land. God bless the USA.
We're not bragging.
Their comment will be coming up in a moment, but I wanted to talk about this song real quick. When 9/11 happened, my husband was stationed at Fort Polk. He was in the Army, he was a Calf Scout. Our one son was 3 years old, and our other was a baby. And the day that it happened, he was out in the field. He, like I said, was a Calf Scout. They were out in the field a lot. And his commander's wife had called me to let me know what was going on and where they would be and things of that nature. And I have family that live near Shanksville, PA, and I couldn't get through on the phone lines. And I mean, I think we all have feelings that day of what happened. We had never seen anything like it before in the United States. So it was very hard to take. And, you know, my 3-year-old asking why I was crying and having to tell him just basic terms, you know, some bad guys flew planes into a building, buddy, and a lot of people got hurt. So to get to the song, I had to go make our car payment the next day. And I was driving down the road, and on the radio, this song came on. And the tears just flowed from my eyes. And so that song for a long time held a special place in my heart because I was on a military post. My husband, you know, served in the Army and was serving at that time. And our post was locked down. There were Humvees everywhere. Security was locked down. I couldn't go to work for a week. We had barricades up everywhere. And I just witnessed the worst attack on American soil and all of these losses. And everybody was still trying to make sense of it. I mean, I think a lot of us are still today. And so this song, for a long time held a special place in my heart. And then Trump comes. And I feel like it's lost all meaning to me. And when I stood up and sang it, along with everybody in that crowd, I felt nothing, which it's kind of taken away that for me. And I don't know. It's kind of sad because I used to have a really touching memory to that song and an experience with it. And now that's gone. And the commentary these guys make after it just proves why it is like that for me and why it's kind of painful, because it's been co-opted in such an ugly and hateful way. But anyways, I thought I would share what that song used to mean to me and how I have absolutely no connection to it anymore and my feelings on it. So I will continue now.
That's actually true.
America is occupied by fucking Nazis. Fucking Jews.
Longtime producer Justin Wells.
And there we have it. Right after the song, one of the gentlemen behind me says, America is occupied by fucking Nazis and then fucking Jews. Now, I'm not sure what he meant by that, and it's kind of confusing because Nazis and Jews are thrown in at the same time, but I don't know. Like the whole entire time, and I didn't get to catch a lot because they were loud, and then sometimes they were quiet. They were drunk. At one point, I got half a beer spilled down my arm by one of the guys. He gets lost at the bottom of the steps, and he's calling his friends, and they're flashing a camera light at him because he can't even see his way back to a seat. I mean, they were awful to sit by, not just because of their language, but just because they were so loud and reckless, and just the whole night too, they kept hitting into my head. I had a clip in. They did keep apologizing, but it was consistent all night. Just the worst people you could sit by. But again, it displays the audience and the crowd that they draw in. So, yeah, I'm not sure what they meant by that statement because it's conflict. I don't know. Just odd. But they get worse. And there was a lot of even uglier things that my recording didn't pick up. But they were the worst to sit by. I mean, it was just holding it in and having to sit there and remain cool and calm was really, it was a new experience for my son and I, especially my son being biracial, which I'll discuss after we get through all of these recordings. Moms for America.
Let's go, motherfucker!
Mama's in the house tonight, do we? All right, well, welcome everyone. We are delighted to have all of you here. It's amazing. It is the 12th stop on the Tucker Carlson Live Tour. We are so excited to welcome all of you. As you can tell, there is an incredible energy in this room, an incredible patriotism from all across the state. So welcome, welcome, welcome. This is going to be an amazing show because you know what? We all love Tucker Carlson. And we have a special guest tonight. Have you guys heard of Alex Jones? This is going to be so much fun. I cannot wait. Well, welcome everyone. My name is Debbie Kulitis. I'm the Vice President of Moms for America, and we are honored to be an official partner of the Tucker Carlson Tour. And again, we are hitting 16 stops across the country with Tucker. We love Tucker because he is an ambassador of truth and a voice of common sense. So we so appreciate him, and when we got invited to be on this tour, we said yes and amen. So, quickly, say hello to your neighbors. Do you know each other? Say hi. Shake their hands. Quick fist bump.
Hi. Shelby. Hi, son.
All right.
God.
Along with welcoming all of you. All right, don't get too friendly now.
As you can hear, we did participate in this, blending into the crowd again and, talking to everybody. To the left of me, and it was the only seat to the left of me, was a younger kid. I always call them kids. I mean, I'm almost 50. He was in his mid-20s. He was there by himself, and, he was nice enough. I mean, everybody seems nice, right? But look at the event we were at. And at one point, he gets up to leave, and I think it's on the recording. You might be able to hear it a little bit. At one point, he's like, "I'll be right back. Can you watch my seat?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure." I wasn't watching his seat. The event we were at, anybody could have come, and I wasn't going to say anything. Like, you're going to have to come back, dude, and be like, "That's my seat." Like, no. This is a Tucker Carlson, Jack Posobiec, and Alex Jones event with a bunch of MAGA people who are not my people, and I'm not duking anybody out for your seat or arguing. I mean, if it was, I don't know, I went to a Pink concert, and if somebody came and sat next to, because I made friends with everybody around me there, we had a great time, I would be like, "Hey, somebody was sitting there, I think you're in the wrong section." I'm not doing that at a Tucker Carlson event. Sorry, bro, on your own. But anyways, he was a nice guy. I mean, as nice as somebody can be again at this event, right? Like the elderly couple. Continuing on.
So in March of this year, we did a text survey with one question. We only surveyed moms who voted for Biden in 2020 and moms who were registered independents. I know, all right, but that's who we're going after, right? That's what we want to make the change with. So we asked them one question. Do you support boys playing in girls' sports and sharing girls' locker rooms and bathrooms?
Let's go, Brandon!
6 to 1, the answer was no. So even with that community, the answer was no. So this is a winning issue along with so many other parental rights issues, and we are taking it to the doors.
I looked for this survey. I looked on their website. I did some other searches, and I could not find this survey because I wanted to check the validity. I wanted to check how they sampled people, how they conducted the survey, all of those things. And I could not locate this survey.
I get to introduce an incredible young man who is one of our sponsors. His name is Joe from Texas. Would you give him a round of applause?
I don't know who he is.
I did not know who Joe from Texas was. So I went to his website, and he writes some newsletter type things. I think he has a YouTube and an Instagram, things like that. And this is from his mission statement on his website. Joe from Texas is a grassroots organization which will be dedicated to promoting fiscally responsible policy solutions and which will advocate, encourage, and support those sound fiscal policies through research, dissemination, communication, and publication of facts, information, and data in support thereof. So I guess that's what Joe from Texas does. I do want to say Joe from Texas does tell a story that many can relate to. I have to say myself included, and I can see why others relate to him. He does remind me of my best friend's dad. He's a farmer. He's older. He is a Trump supporter. He has a MAGA hat. He is absolutely the sweetest older man. We go to picnics at his house, cookouts, barbecues. He's been to our house many times. We have family events together. Our families are very blended. Clear to my sister, my parents, like we're a very blended, extended type family. Like she's not just my best friend. Like all of our families are intermixed. So I can see why Joe from Texas has a relatable story to people. And I did find him the least offensive of everybody speaking at this event. Not that I think Joe from Texas is anybody that should be looked up to or admired or anything like that, but he was the least offensive and I think the most relatable because of the story he told and because of his age. And I think a lot of rural people can relate to his story and the way he grew up. I know in our area I can relate to that. because it's something I grew up with and stories that I've heard. So I can see why he would be relatable and people are drawn to Joe from Texas, actually. So here comes Joe from Texas.
Let me share a little story. I've been crisscrossing America talking to people about how it was in the 1950s living in Frisco, Texas. And my father was alcoholic. In 1957, he had a bad stroke. He was in VA hospital. 2 weeks later, we didn't have enough to eat. Drank everything up. My mom started taking in laundry and doing irons for the neighbors and people around town just to feed us. And that went on for a long, long time. I think Dad was in the hospital about half that year. There's no gentleman next door that did all kinds of odd jobs, and he let me and my two older brothers help him. My younger brother was too young. We'd make a nickel or a dime or something, bring it home to Mom, and that's what fed us. She read the Bible to us every night, and that was so important to keep our faith and plow ahead. The old gentleman found a bicycle that somebody discarded and he brought it home. Had a couple of flattens. Put some new tubes in the tires, didn't even match. But it fit me pretty good, and I'd ride it every day. And when I rode that bike, I wasn't poor anymore. Nobody looked down on me. That was my freedom. The air would hit me in the face. I'm sure a lot of people, when they ride their motorcycles, they feel that way. And I felt that way every day. And me and my older brother Lee could ride it. And we rode it every day. We loved that little bike. Woo! And I had a cousin, and probably some of y'all have cousins like this that your mom said, Billy's coming over, Ralph's coming, just made you really cringe. This kid was always getting me and Lee in trouble. Mama said, Andy's coming over tomorrow. Oh, man. So we're riding the bike, and I look up and I see Andy coming from the house. He comes up, and Lee's riding on the bike. He said, I want my ride. She don't get no ride. He kept everything to himself. That's the meanest kid you ever saw. I said, no, Andy, this is our bike. So he ran to the house and told my mom. She come out and said, Joe, you know you have to share. I said, okay. So I showed Andy. I said, you see that old truck down there? He said, yeah. So that's how far you go, and you turn around and come back. So Lee got up with the bike, and Andy got on it, and down the road he went. Got close to the truck, and I told Lee, I said, he ain't slowing down, he went right on past the truck. I felt like he's gone about an hour, it must have been about 5 minutes. He come back and run right by us again. But 65 years ago, I experienced road rage that day. I really got a little bit out of shape at 9 years old. So Andy made the turn, he come back and I said, Andy, stop, that's my bike. He said, no, it's mine. Well, that was my freedom. So I shoved him over when he come by. The bicycle was on top of Andy, and I got on top of the bicycle, and I had my way with Andy. I got through with him, and he jumped up squalling and went back to the house. Here come Mom. Joe, get in this house. She didn't want me, so I wasn't too worried about that. But every day after she got my daddy up, got him something to eat, got him through the bathroom, she'd sit him in front of that window in the front so the sun would come in, shine on him. He couldn't get around by himself. His whole left side was paralyzed. She said, go, come in here. So I went in. She says, go in there and tell your daddy what you done. Oh, I ain't had to do that for 2 years. Go tell your daddy what you done. And so I went in there, and Dad had his head down, he was sleeping. I said, Daddy, real low. Mama said, Joe, call your daddy. I said, Daddy, what do you want? I said, Mama said, I got to tell you what I did to Andy. What did you do to Andy? I said, well, we got in a fight. What was you fighting for? And I told the whole story again. Now, this man would be 122 years old if he was living today. So I was raised the old way. He was pretty strict before he had that stroke. And he had that cane, and I was worried about what was fixed to happen. I wasn't going to run away. I knew I couldn't do that. So he sat there and he picked his thoughts. And his words real good. He says, y'all were fighting? I said, yes, sir. You love that bike? I said, yes, sir. He said, who won the fight? I said, I did. And I was proud of that. So he put his cane kind of in between his legs. He stuck his hand out. close to him, he put his hand on my head, behind my head, and rubbed my head. He said, go ride your bike. You can always stand up for your freedom, son. Go ride your bike. I didn't get a whip. We have the most important fight America's ever had, not in my 74 years, but since America started. We have got to win the White House this November. We have got to put Donald Trump back in the White House. We need JD to go to the University of Trump for 4 years, learn everything he can, and lead us for 8 more years.
I don't think that JD Vance can go to the University of Trump because, according to this New York Times article from November 18th of 2016, titled Donald Trump Agrees to Pay $25 Million in Trump University Settlement, it says it's closed and he had to pay out some money. Let's see. Donald J. Trump has reversed course and agreed on Friday to pay $25 million to settle a series of lawsuits stemming from his defunct for-profit education venture, Trump University, finally putting to rest fraud allegations by former students, which have dogged him for years and hampered his presidential campaign. The settlement was announced by the New York Attorney General just 10 days before one of the cases, a federal class action lawsuit in San Diego, was set to be heard by a jury. The deal averts a potentially embarrassing and highly unusual predicament, a president-elect on trial and possibly even taking the stand in his own defense, while scrambling to build his incoming administration. It was a remarkable concession from a real estate mogul who derides legal settlements and has mocked fellow businessmen who agree to them. The judge said in court Friday that he hoped a settlement agreement and the end of the presidential campaign would begin a healing process that this country very sorely needs. Under the agreement, Mr. Trump will pay $21 million to settle the 2 California class action suits and $4 million to settle with the New York Attorney General. The lawyers for the plaintiffs waived their attorney's fees. The deal still has to be approved in court, which could take months. About 7,000 students will share in the settlement, according to their lawyers. The customers will be eligible to recoup at least half of what they spent at Trump University, and some could receive a full refund, the lawyers said. So, sorry, Joe from Texas. I don't think JD's going there.
Get out there and vote. Take your country back. God bless Tucker Carlson. God bless each and every one of you. And God bless the United States of America.
Next up are the Sambrosa, sponsors of the Tucker Carlson tour, and they are a father and son. And after they speak, we're going to talk a little bit about Sambrosa.
Don't you all worry, Tucker is up next. Welcome, we're heading Pennsylvania. We are thrilled and honored to welcome you to the 12th Tucker Carlson live tour. I am John Van Heerden. This is my son Jeff from Sambrosa.com. We are standing at a crossroads in this country. Our freedom of speech is under attack. And more than ever, it is important to have leaders who boldly speak the truth. And Tucker does just that. Approximately a year ago, I was watching some documentaries about child trafficking. And I was profoundly moved to take some action against this so much that we as a company are pledging a minimum of 10% of our profits to stop all child trafficking. Because God's children are not for sale.
Absolutely
zero reason for any of you to lie awake at night worrying about the world's issues. We've got you covered.
Yep.
And just remember, when you guys support us, you're not just buying a good night's rest. You're also helping in the fight to stop all child trafficking.
So let's talk Sambrosa. So I started on their website because I wanted to see who they were donating to and how they were going to fight child trafficking. The only thing I could find on their website was this statement. 10% of proceeds go to help child trafficking. At Sambrosa, we believe in the power of community and the responsibility that comes with being part of our community. That is why we are deeply committed to making a positive impact beyond the services and products we offer. We are proud to pledge 10% of all of our net profits to the fight against child trafficking. This cause is close to our hearts, and we recognize the urgent need to protect the most vulnerable among us. Every child deserves to grow up in a safe environment free from exploitation, and we are determined to contribute in order to make that a reality. Through this pledge, we support organizations and initiatives that work tirelessly to rescue, rehabilitate, and empower children who have been affected by trafficking. Together, with your support, we can help bring an end to this horrific crime and build a safer, brighter future for our children. Join us in this fight because none of God's children are for sale. Now, they had no listings of who they're donating to or the amount of their net profits that they've done so far or anything of that nature. And what I thought was interesting in the statement on their website is that they said, through this pledge, we support organizations and initiatives that work tirelessly. They don't say what organizations or initiatives, so it's very vague, and you just have to take their word for it. And I did a Google search, and I was looking around, and other people had obviously searched this too because it comes up in the Google search. And there were no real answers for that at all. It was just, they're doing the Lord's work. I then came across a podcast episode that they have done. And it's titled, Is Sambrosa the Miracle Sleep Solution We Need? John and Jeff Van Heerden, and it was episode number 795 of the Digital Social Hour podcast. And it talks about them being former hay farmers from Canada who acquired Sambrosa, which was a company in the Netherlands. And they still get their ingredients and everything from the Netherlands, as far as I can tell. And it's a homeopathic sleep aid. There we go, homeopathic. And they had been customers for a while, and they were excited because they eventually bought the company from retiring owners around 17 years ago. And then they launched Sambrosa in the US and decided to sponsor Tucker Carlson's tour as a way to reach larger audiences and connect with like-minded people and to raise awareness about their product, as well as their commitment to donating 10% of profits to fight child trafficking. And again, in this podcast, they don't say what organizations they're donating to, how they're fighting child trafficking, and the host doesn't ask them anything about it. He's just like, wow, that's great. So they talk about what is in their product. It's an herbal remedy mixed with honey, 7 organic herbs, and a small dose of antihistamine. Yes, antihistamine. Of course, that is going to knock you out. It's an antihistamine. It makes you sleepy. And we'll talk about this later after I go through this podcast because I have their FDA report of the ingredients. So they say they really love the product, and they got to know the owners who, guess what, are homeopathic doctors. So 3 years ago, they launched it in the US. The big launch is with Tucker, and quote, Tucker is one of the greatest voices in media today. And here comes another quote. Yeah, so that's something that's been very near and dear to our hearts. We just announced on our tour, at the start of the tour on September 4th on the Phoenix show, that 10% of our profits will be going towards fighting child trafficking because it's not aware enough in the country, gets talked about. But it's time that people take action and make a difference, and we thought, what better way to do it? Now, child trafficking is not aware enough in the country, in the US. It's not. Jack Posobiec, right? He's on the tour. Pizzagate that predates QAnon. Jack Posobiec that went to Comet Ping Pong and did the video and act like he was terrified in it, and then it spread all over social media. Alex Jones, who spread Pizzagate, and we know how that went too. Tucker Carlson, the people in the audience. I mean, it's everywhere about child trafficking, disinformation from the right. The real organizations are having trouble actually doing the real work for child trafficking and sex trafficking. So to say our country's not aware is false. We are aware. It's the disinformation that is getting away. And it's people like this that are using child trafficking to sell their products and pretending that they really, really care about it when it's the profit margin they actually care about. Typical Alex Jones salesmanship. Now I'm going to read the FDA report on what their ingredients actually are in Sambrosa Sleep Aid. And this comes directly from the FDA. It's a report, and you have to submit to this when you're approved by the FDA. And Sambrosa is an over-the-counter medication manufactured, distributed, or labeled by Sambrosa Care, Inc. And the active ingredients, each 3 milliliter dose contains doxylamine succinate, 9.78 milligrams. And the purpose of that ingredient is it's an antihistamine. And I'm going to tell you, if you look on any box of a sleep aid maybe, or ZzzQuil, or nighttime cough syrups, things of that nature, you're going to see this ingredient in there. That is what this is. And their uses that they have it labeled on here for is temporarily relieves these symptoms due to hay fever or other upper respiratory allergies, sneezing, runny nose, itchy watery eyes, itching of the nose or throats. And then they have warnings from the doctor, ask the pharmacist. And then when using this product, you can have marked drowsiness. You should avoid alcoholic beverages. Alcohol sedatives and tranquilizers may increase drowsiness. You should be careful when driving a motor vehicle or operating machinery. Excitability may occur, especially in children. And then they have their directions for it on here, and things of that nature. So, and then they have the inactive ingredients, which are herbal alcohol water extract blend from 7 organic herbs: California poppy, hawthorn, hops, mistletoe, oat, passion flower, and white chestnut. And there's a dash of honey in there. Oh, wait, we got some vanilla. So yeah, the active ingredient is just an antihistamine. And then they threw in some other stuff to say it's herbal, and it's really good for you. All this is something for your allergies, and that's why people are sleeping at night. But they're billing it as a sleep aid, and you'll have your best sleep of your night. You could probably get this, and I didn't look at the prices, but I'm sure you can go and get, the Walmart brand, CVS's brand, Rite Aid, whatever, way cheaper, take an allergy pill, whatever, and sleep just fine. And I'm not really sure that you should be taking an allergy pill every night. Maybe talk to your doctor if you're having trouble sleeping at night. But what do I know? I'm not a homeopathic doctor. And here comes Tucker.
Let's fucking go!
City out of 16, and one of the things that I wanted, I love you too, thank you. I wanted, if you spend your life experiencing the United States through your phone, which I think all of us do, you really lose track of what it's actually like, and you do. And I do think that part of the lie, part of the plan for the rest of us is to convince us that our country sucks. And that's not true at all. And that's why it's been such a blessing to go coast to coast. I haven't met a single angry person. I haven't met a single nasty person. I haven't met anybody mistreating anybody else. I've met exactly the opposite. I have met the warmest, kindest, most loving, hilarious, eccentric people I've ever met. And those are the people I grew up with. This is the country I remember. And so, no, it's true though. It actually is great, and I've just been reminded of that so well. But I saw a photograph of your Governor Josh Shapiro standing with a foreign leader citing an artillery shell that is going to kill civilians in a country we're not at war with a grin on his face.
I'm just going to pause here as I am from Pennsylvania, and during this I had not seen the news. I had no idea what Tucker was referring to, and he's going to discuss this many times throughout this, but here are the facts. This is from the Pennsylvania Department of Community and Economic Development's official website. Governor Shapiro welcomes Ukrainian President Zelensky to Scranton Army Ammunition Plant, signs sister state agreement with Zaporizhzhia, Ukraine to strengthen ties, and the date is September 23, 2024. Governor Josh Shapiro and members of the Shapiro administration welcomed Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky during a visit to the Scranton Army Ammunition Plant, SCAP, in Lackawanna County, one of the two major munition plants in northeastern Pennsylvania. President Zelensky made a special trip to the Keystone State to visit the Pennsylvania workers who are playing a vital role in Ukraine's defense. During the visit, President Zelensky spoke with workers at SCAP, a U.S. Army Joint Munitions Command, JMC, facility that manufactures large-caliber metal projectiles and mortar projectiles for the U.S. Department of Defense, and thanked them for their efforts. SCAP specifically builds 155mm howitzer rounds, some of the most vital equipment for Ukraine's defense against Russia. Quote, "Today is an exciting day for Zaporizhzhia and Pennsylvania," said DCED Secretary Rick Seiger. This agreement will help support the future economic revitalization of Ukraine, while boosting our economy and creating jobs for Pennsylvanians. Hear that? Creating jobs for Pennsylvanians. Continuing quote, 5 of the sectors included in the agreement mirror those in our economic development strategy, and we look forward to building a strong partnership with Zaporizhzhia in industries such as energy, agriculture, life sciences, robotics, advanced manufacturing, and more. This month, more than 150 soldiers from the Pennsylvania National Guard's PANG 56th Stryker Brigade combat team deployed to Germany, supporting the Joint Multinational Training Group, Ukraine. The PANG's Task Force Independence is currently training Ukrainian forces in combined arms and maneuver training for battalion-sized units. Quote, "Training is key to Ukraine's continued successes on the battlefield," said Major General Mark Schindler, Pennsylvania's Adjunct General and head of the Department of Military and Veterans Affairs, DMVA. Quote, "Our Pennsylvania National Guard soldiers are in Germany, away from their families and loved ones in support of this mission. They, along with more than 1,000 other PANG members, are currently serving overseas in support of our nation and its responsibility to operations around the globe. We are proud of their commitment and thankful of their service."
It's my honor to serve as the governor and to have you here in the home of Senator Bob Casey, our United States Senator, President Biden, and many others. We are blessed to have so many Ukrainians living here in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, the second largest number in the entire United States of America. And we feel a special kinship to them and to all of you in your work to defend Ukraine. We stand with you, and we look forward to the conversation here today, and we're honored that you're spending time with us. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you so much, Governor, and thank you so much, senators and friends, and we are very happy to start our visit to America from this city, from your city, from Scranton, from Pennsylvania, and for us it's very important to say thank you to ordinary people. I think that today we will have such possibility from us, from all Ukrainians, to say thanks to all Americans for such support, and we're very happy that we have such partners, and of course we understand that United States helped us from the very beginning of full-scale war, but we still count on continuing support. We are thankful to President Biden, bipartisan support, and thanks to such plants and such workers, officers, soldiers, surgeons, for such support that you stay with us. Thank you, Governor, for such words. We're ready for conversation.
Alongside national, state, and local leaders from Pennsylvania and the United States, the dynamic region of Zaporizhia, a center of Ukrainian industry and
I also want to say here that Pennsylvania has the second highest number of Ukrainians of any other state. And this is true even of our small rural community. We have a Ukrainian church still here that is thriving. I have many Ukrainian family members. I have Ukrainian friends. So our Ukrainian church, even as Catholic churches have closed, Protestants, Methodists, the Ukrainian church here is still thriving. And I mean, my community is really, really small. So the Ukrainian population in Pennsylvania is still here. It's thriving. Their culture and the people are really important in Pennsylvania. So this initiative and the cooperation between Pennsylvania to Ukraine is something vital. Let's see how Republicans felt about this. And this is from the PA Capital Star, dated September 25th of 2024. Top Republicans cry foul over Ukrainian President Zelensky's Scranton visit with Shapiro. On Wednesday, U.S. House Speaker Mike Johnson, Republican of Louisiana, wrote a letter to Zelensky, the nerve of this guy, demanding that he fire Ukrainian ambassador to the U.S., Oksana Makarova, over the visit. Quote, the facility was in a politically contested battleground state, was led by a top political surrogate for Kamala Harris, and failed to include a single Republican because, on purpose, no Republicans were invited, Johnson wrote. The tour was clearly a partisan campaign event designed to help Democrats and is clearly election interference. Johnson's demand comes as House Oversight Committee Chair James Comer, Republican of Kentucky, announced that he will investigate whether the Biden-Harris administration attempted to use a foreign leader to benefit Vice President Harris's presidential campaign, and if so, necessarily committed an abuse of power. I wonder how Republicans felt on July 12th of 2024. Let's see about this article here. And the title is, Come to Ukraine, See Our Strength, Zelensky tells governors on Utah stage. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky visits Utah for National Governors Association meeting. Thanks Utah delegation for visiting his war-torn country in 2023, while inviting other states to follow. And I want to mention that this National Governors Association meeting had no Democrats present. It was all Republicans. Quote, it was kind of a long shot to get him here, the governor told reporters ahead of Zelensky's speech, noting the Ukrainian president has visited major U.S. cities on the coast like New York, California, and Washington. But this is his first trip to the heartland of the country, and it was made possible because of Utah's existing connections with Zelensky and other Ukrainian officials. Quote, there is still evil in this world, and that evil is on the march right now. And that evil feels emboldened, Governor Cox told reporters. It is up to good people everywhere. This is what America does best. It's what we did best in World War I and World War II, and I'm grateful we're able to slow down and stop evil without risking the blood of our people. While it's certainly appropriate for people to ask questions around funding being sent to Ukraine, Cox said, we should support Ukraine. So I'm hopeful our party will continue to rally around this, Cox said of the GOP. Most of our party does support Ukraine, and I think when detractors hear what is really happening over there, they will as well. After Zelensky's speech, the Ukrainian president joined Utah's state leaders in a room packed with other dignitaries for a signing ceremony of a memorandum of understanding between Utah and Kiev Oblast, the province surrounding Ukraine's capital city of Kiev. Cox and Oksana Makarova, ambassador of Ukraine to the U.S., signed the document. The MOU, Cox said, sets a traditional sister-state relationship with the region of Ukraine. It's focused on building a foundation of economic cooperation, so we'll be working on trade together in that region, he said. Whenever Ukraine's war with Russia ends, Cox said, the country's going to need rebuilding, And in the meantime, Ukraine's economy needs to stay strong. Quote, and this helps Utah as well, Cox said. This is good for our economy. This is good for our entrepreneurs to work closely with their entrepreneurs. And there's so much we can accomplish. And I also have the agreements that Utah signed with Ukraine and that region, and the agreements that Pennsylvania signed with the Zaporizhia region as well. And I will share those in my sourcing. Now, let's resume Tucker.
And I had a couple of thoughts. I was disgusted by it, actually. I was enraged by it. And here's why. Let me be specific about here's why. The first reason is, I've been driving around Pennsylvania, and actually I've fished here a lot over the course of my life. And so I know the state pretty well. And there are some, it is really one of the prettiest out of 50, maybe the prettiest in spots out of 50. It's ridiculous how pretty it is. But there are some hurting places in this state, like actually, where people don't have jobs, where, beautiful buildings in utter disrepair, walking back from dinner last night, people sleeping on the sidewalk, things that we should not put up with in a country with self-respect, and our leaders did that, actually. And so for anybody in charge of anything in this country, particularly in this state, to be spending time, money, or concern on a foreign country's problems enraged me. It enraged me. Lecture me about problems in some other place, whether it's in Eastern Europe or the Middle East or Central Africa, I don't care. I don't wish any of those people harm at all. I wish everyone well. But for you to spend your time worrying about that and paying for that, when your own state, people in your own state are literally living on the sidewalk, damn you, actually. I thought, I mean that. Job is to take care of the people he leads. Period. It's not to end global climate change. It's not to defeat Vladimir Putin or anybody else.
It's so noticeable in the way Tucker Carlson says Vladimir Putin's name, how much he is trying to downplay the real danger he poses, like he's some punchline to some joke. We're going to talk about Tucker and Russia, but just wanted to point that out because he does that and tries to make Vladimir Putin's name like this cutesy little joke. And Vladimir Putin's no joke. And I think the Ukrainian people know that. And now we have North Korea involved as well. So Vladimir Putin is no joke.
The people who run it have one job, and that's to watch out for you because they're your leaders. And when they ignore that, they are evil. Period. They're not misguided. There's no way
Let's
that someone
go.
who lives in this state, particularly who claims to represent this state, was born in this state. I'm one of you. I'm from Pennsylvania. You don't notice that you take a city like the one I woke up in this morning where my wife went to grade school, and it's a beautiful city built over centuries by hardworking immigrants, by the way. German mostly, but probably from lots of other places, and they spent hundreds of years making this a great city. And I walked through it this morning on the way to the park, and the streets are covered in garbage and broken needles. It's like, you don't notice that? Really, Josh Shapiro? You don't notice that? How can you not notice that? There's someone sleeping right there. And you're lecturing me about Ukraine? Damn you.
Fuck yeah.
There's no concern at all. And where there's no concern, there's no love, actually. Concern grows from love.
Just a side note real quick. This was our first time in Reading, and as we drove in, we actually commented on how pretty of a town it was. When we got out to walk around, we were actually noting shops and different restaurants we'd like to visit. It was clean. The streets weren't littered with needles. There wasn't garbage everywhere. There weren't unhoused persons everywhere. They weren't sleeping all over the streets. I'm not saying that the city doesn't have an unhoused problem, which I hope, that those people are getting some help and that there are organizations working there to get them some assistance, because that is what a community should be doing, not berating them the way Tucker is. And I'm actually looking forward to visiting Reading again. My husband and I are actually talking about going back for a 4-day weekend upcoming so that we can go on a Friday through Monday and actually, because sometimes you visit a town and different stores or restaurants are open on different days. That way we get to cover, the weekdays and a weekend. So yeah, we're not terrified of Reading. It's not filthy. It's not gross. It's a very lovely city. I encourage everybody to visit there. It was a nice, even for the couple hours we were there. I liked it and I'm looking forward to going back. Tucker exaggerates everything. Same with Philadelphia. I've been there numerous times. Don't let anybody scare you about Philadelphia. Beautiful city. So many things to do. Go there if you ever have a chance.
I talk for a living, so I think a lot about this, about words and their use. And I use words, we all do, to communicate with other people. It's language. It's the ability to be precise about the way we feel and communicate that to another person, to pass on information, to pass on our history. That's what our culture is. It's talking. And that's great. But words are also, if you think about it, a means of deception. They are a vector for lying. How do the lies reach you? Because they come out of somebody's mouth. So if you're in my business and you think a lot about language and you're around people who are lying for a living, after a while, you lose faith in it. You do.
They sure do, Tucker. Let's talk about the Tucker Carlson defense. This is from September 29th of 2020. It's from NPR. The title of the article is, "You Literally Can't Believe the Facts Tucker Carlson Tells You. So Say Fox Lawyers." U.S. District Judge's opinion, leaning heavily on arguments of Fox's lawyers. The general tenor of the show should then inform a viewer that Carlson is not stating actual facts about the topics he discusses and is instead engaging in exaggeration and non-literal commentary. She wrote, "Fox persuasively argues that given Mr. Carlson's reputation, any reasonable viewer arrives with an appropriate amount of skepticism about the statements he makes." In written briefs, Carlson's lawyers cited previous rulings to argue Carlson's words were loose, figurative, and hyperbolic. They took note of a non-journalist use of word extort, which proved non-defamatory because it was mere rhetorical hyperbole, a vigorous epitaph. So, the Tucker Carlson defense. Should you believe him? Probably not, because any reasonable viewer arrives with the appropriate amount of skepticism about the statements he makes. So yeah, Tucker Carlson knows a little bit about lying in words.
You can say, well, I have a plan because I'm so compassionate. I really care about you and all your communities. First of all, anyone who uses the word community is lying to you. Because there's no such thing as a community. There are only people, actually, with names and fingerprints. There are only individuals. No woman ever gave birth to a community. There's no such thing. Talking about communities is a way of ignoring actual people. Really, name 3 people in the community. What are their middle names? Who are their moms? Do you know their moms? You don't know anything about the community.
I really hate to keep stopping, but Tucker really irks me throughout this whole event. And when he goes off about community, and he's going to keep going, when he says name 3 people, their middle names, who are their parents, I had a lot of thoughts, because I can name many people in my community. I can name the 3 people, middle names, their parents, things of that nature. But when he starts saying that there is no community, he doesn't believe in it, there's only individuals, like I said, I had thoughts rolling around in my head, because you look at people talking about God and church, right? This is the event, they talk about this a lot, God and things of that nature. Well, church is a community, right? You get together as a group, you go and pray, they have potlucks together, some run bingos. Let's say somebody in the church has a death in the family. The community of the church comes together. Let's say somebody has a house fire. What does the community of the church do? They gather together, goods for the family, to help them get through that. If somebody has a major illness, what does the church community do? They come together to help that person. And it's the same in the general community that you live in. People gather resources to help. If you have a volunteer fire company, the community comes together for events that help raise money for that volunteer fire company. It's not individuals, it's the community that comes together. If you have a police department that's underfunded, which happens a lot in rural communities, you come together to raise funds for that police department. That's community.
Community is a way to make your responsibility more diffuse and less specific. I don't want to hear about the community. How about that guy? He's on fentanyl. There's a spreading puddle of urine in front of him. That's an American citizen. That's someone you're supposed to love. Your job is to love that person. You're doing nothing for that person because you're lecturing me about the community is the truth.
I'm not sure why the crowd was cheering this on other than these were words coming out of Tucker Carlson's mouth and they're just so used to clapping for anything he says. But if they really thought about it, I think they would reconsider that position because of the communities they actually are part of and the communities that they actually volunteer and work within. So that was my thought about communities. Now let's resume Tucker again.
So I come to Reading like sporadically, but pretty consistently over like 40 years now. Not better. It's a beautiful town, actually. It's a beautiful town. Like someone spent a lot of time building Reading, Pennsylvania. It's super obvious as you drive in. It's not a bunch of dollar stores. No, there are a bunch of big, substantial brick buildings built over 100 years by people who cared. Woo! And to see a town like that dying from lack of care, from lack of love, but it's not just Josh Shapiro. Trust me, it's a whole line. It's decades of politicians who didn't love you. That enrages me. And then to see him direct his love toward a foreign leader and a foreign population that he knows nothing about. He doesn't speak Ukrainian. What do you know about Ukraine, Josh Shapiro? Josh Shapiro's only job is to protect and enhance the lives of people in Reading and Pottstown and every other town in this state. Including, and I'm just gonna say it, you're gonna jeer me, including Philadelphia. And how is that city doing? I mean, it's a reliable source of political power for creeps like Josh Shapiro, because it's easy to rig it in Philadelphia, and that's what we spent all our time talking about.
Tucker, here I come again. Let's talk about elections in Pennsylvania. And I have an article from September 9th of 2024 from VoteBeat PA, and the title of it is How Philadelphia's History of Election Fraud Fuels Trump's False Claims About the City. 2 weeks before a 1993 special election for a Pennsylvania State Senate district in Philadelphia, Marks was walking down the street in Center City when he was stopped by a Democratic member of the city council, who warned Marks that there would be fraud in the race using absentee mail ballots. Marks, the Republican candidate, dispatched one of his advisors to the city commissioner's office to pull the absentee ballot applications, and the aide reported an unusually high number of them, many filled out with information that raised questions about their legitimacy. Quote, "We're getting all this information that there's something wrong with these absentee ballot applications, and there's just got to be somebody behind it," Marks recalled during a recent interview. He was right. There was somebody behind it. It was the campaign of his Democratic opponent, William Stinson, who had arranged to have hundreds of voters cast illegitimate absentee ballots. As the scheme unraveled in the ensuing months, the discovery resulted in a judge vacating Stinson's win and appointing Marks to the seat, flipping control of the state Senate. Now infamous, the incident serves as a glaring example of wrongdoing in a city that had several high-profile election scandals and is perpetually targeted by accusations of fraud. Long before Donald Trump zeroed in on Philadelphia as a place where bad things happen, campaigns and conservative activists maligned the city as so rife with corruption and cheating that its elections can't be trusted. The danger of lingering distrust is real. City election officials faced death threats in 2020, and last year, 2 Virginia men were sentenced for bringing weapons to the Philadelphia Convention Center, where mail ballots for the November 2020 election were being counted. Despite reforms aimed at tightening voting security, Mandel said, Philadelphia's history of election misdeeds allows actors who are trying to sway the public to say, "Look, bad things happen in Philadelphia." We're going to talk about some things that have changed in Philadelphia and the state of PA. The most significant changes came in 1937, when the state passed the first codified election law in 98 years. The bill did away with the practice of election assessors, maintaining their own voter list, and centralized the voter registration process. That reform was expanded upon in 2002 with the federal Help America Vote Act, which combined county lists into statewide voter rolls. Voter lists are now publicly accessible for a nominal fee. Political parties and other organizations can and do scrutinize the list for any types of fraudulent registrations. The 1980s brought changes to check the accuracy of vote counts. A statistical audit of 2% of a county's ballots, or 2,000 if that is less, after each election. The state now does an additional risk-limiting audit on top of that, which is designed to check that there is no fraud on a scale that would alter the outcome of a race. Modern technology like electronic voter lists and large historical databases of precinct-level election results allow observers to identify abnormal trends that may indicate fraud. It was these kind of changes that allowed Al Schmidt, then a Republican city commissioner, to uncover the Myers scheme. Schmidt, who is now our Secretary of State for the Commonwealth of PA, was able to use the data on how many ballots were being cast in each precinct to identify discrepancies with the number of voters signing poll books at those locations. Electronic poll books recently implemented by the city will make that kind of check even easier. Lauren Cristella, president of the Philadelphia-based Committee of 70, said the fact that instances like the Myers case are being prosecuted is proof that the system is working. Cristella tries to explain that she knows the people who make elections happen and has personally seen all the steps. She also points to the sheer scale of elections in the city as a bulwark against widespread fraud. There are 1,700 precincts that, when fully staffed, have 5 workers each, including at least one from each party, and they are open to observers from both parties and all campaigns. Quote, "How many people would have to be in on a conspiracy?" she asked. "I don't believe that more than 3 people can keep a secret." Indeed, after the Stinson-Marks race of 1993, a Democratic committeeman working on Stinson's campaign, Bill Jones, became a whistleblower for Marks and testified in court about the details of the scheme. As Trump disputed his 2020 loss in court, Marks represented him, including in an appeal to the U.S. Supreme Court, where he argued that the Pennsylvania Supreme Court had usurped the state legislature's authority to set rules on mail ballot voting. Marks, along with California attorney John Eastman, who has been indicted for his role in Trump's scheme to overturn the 2020 election, wrote that the legislature's concerns about election fraud were, quote, well-founded based on a history of misconduct in Philadelphia. As evidence, Marks cited his own 1993 race. Reflecting on the parallels between his 1993 experience and the language of fraud and cheating Trump has used, Marks said perhaps Trump shouldn't have used the word, quote, fraud, and should have spoken instead about how the rules were, quote, unfair, since he worried that Trump wouldn't have the same concrete evidence to back up a, quote, fraud allegation as he did. Now I have another article, and this is an interview done by Cecilia Vega. It's from October 13th of 2024, and it's from CBS News. And the title of it is Pennsylvania's Top Election Official Reassures Voters While Fighting Misinformation in Battleground State. First, she's talking to lifelong Republican Al Schmidt, and he is our Secretary of State now. He stood up to former President Trump, and he refused to join attempts to overturn his loss 4 years ago. And Schmidt now is doing everything he can between now and Election Day to assure PA residents that their votes will count and to take on the lies that Trump continues to spread across Pennsylvania. Vega. He seems to be saying that there is cheating going on with mail-in ballots here. Schmidt. There is not. Elections in Pennsylvania have never been more safe and secure with a voter-verified paper ballot record of every vote that's cast, whether you vote in person on Election Day or you vote by mail. Schmidt once had his own doubts about election security. Before becoming Secretary of State, he spent a decade on Philadelphia's Board of Elections, where he investigated hundreds of claims of voter fraud. and changed his mind. Democratic Governor Josh Shapiro told us that choosing Al Schmidt, a lifelong Republican, as his first cabinet pick last year was intended to send a clear message. Vega, of all the cabinet appointments you could have made first, why was it Al Schmidt? Governor Shapiro, I made a commitment during my campaign that I was going to appoint a pro-democracy Secretary of State. Vega, what were your marching orders to him? Governor Shapiro, do your job, make it so legal, eligible voters have access to the ballot box, and that we again have a free and fair, safe and secure election. She goes on to talk to our former Republican Governor Tom Corbett, not a fan, but he is working across Pennsylvania with other Republicans to combat the misinformation about PA elections. Vega, the former president has a refrain at his rallies. He says Democrats rigged the election in 2020 and he's not going to let them get away with it this year. Former Governor Corbett, evidence? Bring it. Any U.S. attorney, any district attorney. Bring the evidence and show them. Not what you want, you've got to convince a prosecutor and a court. Vega, you've got polls that show some 34% of Americans, nearly 70% of Republicans who still, to this day, believe that Joe Biden didn't win the 2020 election. Former Governor Corbett, but I can't change that because they believe it, because they've heard it too many times. Vega, you've said that there's a huge amount of people in the middle that can be influenced by the extremes. Is that who you're trying to educate? Former Governor Corbett, yes. The extremes were not going to change, but right here, in a close election, that's very important. Now we will turn to Tucker.
What we never talk about is the zombies walking under public transportation there. And they're not zombies, actually. They're Americans with names. And they're dying. And he doesn't care. And giving them a safe place to shoot up is not love, it's hate. That's hate. I don't care what they call it. And that's what I mean about language. They can dress up hate as love. Oh, that's love, it's compassion. It's caring. It's harm reduction. Really?
Again so soon, let's talk about harm reduction. This is from Johns Hopkins Bloomberg School of Public Health. Harm reduction is exactly what it sounds like, reducing the harm associated with using drugs through a variety of public health interventions. But the concept relies on more than just these tools and begins at the most fundamental level, with recognizing that all people deserve safety and dignity. It does not treat drug use as a moral failing. Harm reduction acknowledges that drugs are widely available in our society. It encompasses the understanding that traditional law enforcement approaches, or those that require complete abstinence, do not decrease demand, use, or negative health consequences of substance use. The primary goal of harm reduction is to save lives and protect the health of both people who use drugs and their communities. According to the National Institute on Drug Abuse, those who use substances are more likely to have HIV, AIDS, hepatitis B and C, mental health disorders, and chronic conditions like cancer and lung disease. Other harm reduction objectives include decreasing the stigma associated with addiction, increasing education on safer substance use, encouraging protected sex, and connecting people who use drugs with health and social services or support groups. There are also overreaching aims like preventing transmission of blood-borne or sexually transmitted infections, discouraging the use of shared needles or equipment, and decreasing the number of overdose deaths. What does harm reduction look like in practice? Some of the best known harm reduction tools include free syringe service programs, overdose prevention sites, fentanyl test kits, naloxone kits and training, sterile injection, or smoking equipment. Harm reduction also comprises addiction facilities, support groups, and medical services, including wound care, vaccinations, and COVID-19 masks, sex education, STI testing and treatment, condoms, and pre-exposure prophylactics, PrEP, are other critical harm reduction tools and services. Achieving the goals of harm reduction depends on accessibilities of these resources. They need to be available in places like community clinics, health departments, churches, public transportation hubs, food banks, homeless shelters, correctional institutions, community centers, social service offices, mental health facilities, and urgent care centers. Does harm reduction encourage people to use drugs? That's a common misconception, says Travis Ryder, PhD, MA, an associate research professor at the Johns Hopkins Berman Institute of Bioethics. Quote, opponents sometimes argue that giving people sterile syringes, clean pipes, naloxone, a space to use drugs under supervision, etc., incentivizes drug use or leads to drug use, he says. But people are going to use drugs whether they have the resources or not, and so withholding them doesn't prevent that use. It just makes it more dangerous. Making an activity more dangerous doesn't stop people who are committed to engaging in that activity. It just hurts and kills more of them. Does harm reduction discourage people from seeking treatment? On the contrary, says Susan Sherman, PhD, MPH, a professor in health, behavior, and society. Harm reduction is, quote, both a social movement and a way to provide services, and it includes drug treatment, she says. Harm reduction is not only useful in and of itself, but it also brings people into services who may not otherwise come into those services. Ryder sees harm reduction and addiction treatment as part of the same process. Quote, in my view of harm reduction and treatment, they can be the same thing, because making drug use safer can prevent some of the negative consequences that define an addiction, he says. One can take the first step of recovery while still using drugs fairly chaotically and continue their road to recovery through small, slow steps that reduce the harm of drug use. Why is the need so urgent? From May 2020 to April 2021, 100,000 people, 29% more than May 2019 to April 2020, died of overdose, according to the CDC. The HHS has reported data trending the same way. The rate of overdose fatalities has jumped 250% since 1999. Why the recent controversy? In December 2021, with support from President Biden's America Rescue Plan, SAMHSA announced its harm reduction grant program, expected to award $30 million in funding to support harm reduction programs and providers working to make substance use safer and prevent overdose deaths. A portion of the funding will be allocated for safe smoking kits, which the White House says include alcohol swabs, lip balm, a rubber mouthpiece, and other materials to promote hygiene and reduce the transmission of diseases like HIV and hepatitis. They do not, however, include the physical pipe itself, which has become the object of contention among opposition. And I do support harm reduction 100%. And I just wanted to talk about that real quick so that the facts are out there about harm reduction, no matter which side you fall on, just so that people actually know what harm reduction is in practice and what it actually means. Let's resume Tucker.
Your kid comes to office like, I'm a junkie. You're like, well, here's some needles. I'm going to give you some time in your room to shoot fentanyl. What? You're going to jam the freaking radiator until he gets better. Of course, or do whatever you can to get that child off a drug that can and will kill him. You would never make it easier for your kid to kill himself. And that's exactly what they're doing, and then they're lecturing you about harm reduction. You're evil, actually. That's how I feel when I hear that. Having lost a lot of people I love to drugs, I bet there's not one person in this room who doesn't know someone who's died from drugs. You think Josh Shapiro stays up late worrying about that? No. He stays up late worrying that Ukraine doesn't have enough weapons of mass destruction to win some unwinnable war. You can tell me you care about the people of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, but they're dying of drug overdoses, and you're doing nothing other than sending more weapons of mass destruction to some creepy guy in a tracksuit. To give a speech like this because I'm really trying to cool the temperature and remind all of us that we're all Americans, we all have something in common. Because the truth is, they're violence worshippers, actually. They're violence, they are. And how do you know that? By what they do? No, they say, oh, it's all about freedom and compassion. Really? An entire generation of Ukrainians has been killed in a war they literally can't win. And they get off on it, they love it. They love violence, that's why every federal agency with guns, they've taken over. No, they love it. And why do they love it? Because it makes them feel like God, that's why.
Stop
because the one power that God possesses that we do not possess is the power to create and end life. When's the last time one of your leaders was like, we're going to make it better in Reddit? Well, it's been a long time. Josh Shapiro hasn't done it. But the one thing they are good at is seizing the moral high ground. Immediately. No matter what they're doing, whether it's giving drugs to junkies, crack pipes to crackheads, abetting the largest example of human trafficking in the history of the West, which is what they're doing right now, is they move 15 million people illegally into our country from around the world. The girls get sold off to coyotes. They did that. They're human traffickers at scale. No, that's not a crackpot opinion. That's just true.
Coming in again about trafficking. And I got this from the U.S. Customs and Border Patrol official website. I think it's important to talk about the definition of human trafficking and what it encompasses, because it's not just the trafficking that Republicans or the right seem to want to talk about all the time. It encompasses a whole lot more than that. So I wanted to present that information and the definition and everything that it does encompass. Although the legal definition of human trafficking is complex, the simple meaning of it is not. It occurs when a person is induced by force, fraud, or coercion to work under the total or near total control of another person or organization, slavery or involuntary servitude, forced to pay off a loan by working instead of paying money for an agreed upon or unclear period of time, debt bondage, or even without an agreement as to the time frame. Perform a sex act for money or anything of value. If under 18, force, fraud, or coercion is not required. According to U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, although many people think of sex trade when they think of human trafficking, this crime also occurs in such labor situations as domestic servitude, labor in a prison-like factory, migrant agricultural work. In addition, with respect to labor situations, the initial agreement to travel or to perform work does not mean that the employer is later allowed to restrict a victim's freedom or to use force or threats to obtain repayment. Human trafficking and human smuggling are sometimes, but not always, linked, because not all individuals who are smuggled are trafficked, and movement is not required for trafficking to occur. In 2000, Congress signed the Victims of Trafficking and Violence Protection Act into law, representing the beginning of a large-scale, coordinated effort by the United States government to fight trafficking. 20 years later, human trafficking still remains prevalent. According to recent figures available, and the source that they are using is from Geneva, September 2017, Global Estimates of Modern Slavery, Forced Labor, and Forced Marriage. At any given time in 2016, an estimated 40.3 million people are in modern slavery, including 24.9 million in forced labor and 15.4 million in forced marriage. It means that there are 5.4 victims of modern slavery for every 1,000 people in the world. 1 in 4 victims of modern slavery are children. Out of the 24.9 million people trapped in forced labor, 16 million people are exploited in the private sector, such as domestic work, construction, or agriculture, 4.8 million persons in forced sexual exploitation, and 4 million persons in forced labor imposed by state authorities. Women and girls are disproportionately affected by forced labor, accounting for 99% of victims in the commercial sex industry and 58% in other sectors. So I thought it was important to put that information out about what all trafficking encompasses so that it gives a larger perspective outside of the sex industry and trafficking in that manner. And now we will resume Tucker.
There was an analysis done, Bobby Kennedy told me this, and I checked it, it's true. In the last election, Biden voters own 70% of the wealth in the United States, and Trump voters own 30%.
I looked for this, I couldn't find it. If I'm remembering correctly, I think Dan from Knowledge Fight covers this survey. I haven't listened to the episode in a while, but he was also at this event, and I think he talks about this survey. I'll have to go back and listen to the episode, but you might want to check it out. But he was at this event, and I think he does cover this survey. I couldn't find any information on it, but I didn't dig deep because I keep fact-checking different little things, but I couldn't find it, within like an hour of searching, so I just kind of gave up. But yeah, I think Dan talks about this survey.
And I thought to myself, on the one hand, it's like, okay, the Republican Party's now the party of working class people, great. But then I thought, how did they get 70% of the wealth? They don't do anything, actually. They have no skills. There's nothing they do that we really need. In fact, most of it's bad. I mean, ask yourself, if your average Biden voter somehow got pulled out of the workforce, would you be okay? No, I really. How long do you think this country could survive without private equity? A week? Before we all just starve to death? How long could you and your family make it without a DEI consultant on site? Could you get the whole mean? Or would one of your little children stare up at you with doe eyes and say, Mommy, I need a DEI consultant. I need it now. I need it now. Honestly, I need a school counselor or some heavy-set nurse who's going to convince me to go trans. I need that. Honestly, I need Tim Walls talking to me about my sex life in high school. Well, I need a creep like Tim. No, I do. I need it bad. Yeah, that guy's not creepy. Okay. So I guess all I would say, and I'm going to stop at this.
Real quick, content warning. The guys behind us are about to say something, and I'm not sure how long it's going to be, but it's before Jack Posobiec comes out, and we're nearing the end where Jack's going to be coming out. They're going to say something very vile about Kamala Harris.
Do not allow the worst and most useless people this country has ever produced. You've added nothing of beauty or value, never fought a war to keep you free, never done anything for you. Watched as your communities died and laughed and got richer. Do not let those people, for 1 second, occupy the moral high ground.
Yeah,
they're all tempted. They are. They're guilty, and they know they're guilty. That's why they're scared.
Fuck you.
Of course, she fully gets control of herself. You can see that glint of fear in her eyes. She has no idea what she's doing. She has no idea how she got here. She's never done anything in her life, and somehow she's the Democratic nominee. She could be elected president. And for 1 second, the camera does tell the truth until people pull themselves together. For 1 second, you can see Kamala Harris in total panic. I'm Montel Williams' side piece. What am I doing here? That's how they know how inadequate they are. They know how guilty they are. They know how Jeffrey Epstein died, and they're terrified that you will. So do not let them give you a lecture about anything. They're not your moral superiors. They're your moral inferiors. They are lucky you let them live here.
Let's fucking go.
And never forget. So with that, thank you so much.
Your fucking rules. Let's get fucking Alex Jones out here. Where's Alex Jones?
Jeff Posobiec is actually from this area. He's so from this area. I've just met his entire family, numbered in the hundreds. All awesome people. And he and I have talked about this because I actually am interested in Pennsylvania specifically. The oldest states, the capital. It's an amazing place with an amazing history. And we've talked a lot about what's happened to it. And we've also talked a lot about Kamala Harris's latest surrogate, Zelensky. And so I thought it'd be fun and interesting to bring him out. You and I have talked, in private a lot about what's happened to the state, but I just have to ask you, since I'm so spun up, and I'll shut up and let you describe your views, which are more interesting than mine. But Zelensky, last I checked, was like a foreign leader from a foreign country. And he flies over the United States on U.S. military aircraft at your expense. It could be going to the guy dying right outside this building at the Federal. And he shows up in Pennsylvania, the key swing state in the closest presidential election of my lifetime, to stump for Kamala Harris and Democrats in this state. Am I misreading what's happening here? Is it weird? I'm just stuck on this, and I'll stop after this, but is it weird to have a foreign leader whose salary we're paying, whose country we're supporting, we're paying the retirement benefits of Ukrainian civil servants when our people are really hurting? Is it weird to have that? Is he allowed to stump for Kamala Harris? What about all the freaking Republicans who voted to fund this ghoul? Like, what are they saying about it?
So here's how it works, right? So why does Reading look the way that it does? Why does Montgomery County? And by the way, if anyone's here from Norristown, Pennsylvania, I'm from Norristown, Pennsylvania.
Tucker really doesn't seem to like Ukraine. Huh. Wonder why. I think a lot of us might know, but in case you don't, let's do a little review. This is from NPR, and it's dated February 8th of 2024. Tucker Carlson, the fired Fox News star, makes bid for relevance with Putin interview. In a video taped after the interview, Carlson told viewers that he found Putin to be sincere, if not adept, at making his case to an American audience. Quote, "He denied it, but it's obvious he's very wounded by the rejection of the West," Carlson said. Like a lot of Russians, he expected the end of the Cold War would be Russia's invitation into Europe. Carlson filmed a video to promote the interview on the rooftop of the Ritz-Carlton Hotel near the Red Square, a location that, according to Russian journalist Albats, spoke volumes of the regard the Kremlin held for Carlson. Quote, "Its rooftop is controlled by one of the KGB's successors, the Federal Security Service, the FSS," she posted on X, formerly known as Twitter. Quote, "No one of us and no one other foreign journalist, except for Oliver Stone, had that luxury of reporting from the rooftop." In that promotional video, Carlson had said that he wanted to interview Putin about the war in Ukraine to learn the truth, and because other American journalists were too biased against Russia to want to do so. Reporters at CNN and the BBC and executives at NPR and Fox were among those who said their networks would be eager to interview Putin without conditions. Even the Kremlin contradicted Carlson's claims, saying it had received and rejected requests from, quote, "exceptionally one-sided U.S. outlets." And there is also the video of Tucker Carlson shopping in Moscow. There's a video of him on the rails. There's videos of him all over Moscow. He put out a lot of propaganda for them. He couldn't have done a better job. There's an undercover video of somebody who caught him and was talking to him, asking if he was going to interview Putin when he got to Moscow, and he was being very cagey about it. And there's everything that he has said numerous times in support of Russia, and always downplaying Ukraine and saying they're fighting a war they're going to lose, they're going to lose, they're going to lose. So, it's pretty clear why he's doing all this.
My name is Alexei. I like you. You're the best American journalist.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, where are you from?
I'm from Moscow.
Я люблю этот город. Он красивый.
Thank you. Thank you. It's really, yes. What do you do in Russia?
Хотел на нее посмотреть. Я так много читал о ней. Я хотел поговорить с людьми и посмотреть на то, как все устроено.
So I wanted to talk to people and look around and see how it was doing. And it's doing very well.
I think maybe interview Putin.
We'll see.
Why your visit in Moscow was American media?
I don't know.
Я не знаю. Они сумасшедшие. Реально сумасшедшие.
Yeah? It's crazy.
It's crazy. Really crazy.
So a long-standing feature, maybe the longest-standing feature of Cold War propaganda in the West was the Soviet grocery store. No products, no choices, shoddily made things. And it wasn't actually propaganda, it was real. So we thought it would be interesting to take a look at a contemporary, modern-day, 2024 Russian grocery store. All right, there we go. So I guess you put in 10 rubles here, and you get it back when you put the cart back. So it's free, but there's an incentive to return it and not just bring it to your homeless encampment. Okay, this is the grocery cart escalator. This is designed, I'm figuring this out now, where the wheels don't move, they lock on the grocery cart escalator. Look, Ma, no hands. So we're gonna try and buy what a family of 4 would buy every week, and we're gonna see what the selection is, and we're gonna see what it costs. Now, Russia is famous for its bread, which is one thing I can assess pretty well. The low-carb lifestyle has not swept Russia. Thank heaven, because I mean, look at that. It's fresh, too. Look at that. Oh, come on. Unicorn and mini mills. All right. Some kind of Russian wheat cookies. Ooh, we need coffee, don't we? Yeah. I don't know if this is sugar or flour, to be honest with you, but it looks like a staple, so we should get it. It's a very good-looking package. It's got to be flour, right? And this is Russian wine. It's from Crimea, which not only has the warm water naval base, but also is the source of most of the grapes in this part of Russia for wine. So it's apparently pretty good. Cheese puffs. You check out of a grocery store and you've got gum, razor blades, and candy. Actually, they hide the razor blades because we steal them. But these are all seem to be Western products. Mars, Twix, Snickers, Milky Way, Bounty, Gillette, Hall's Cough Drops, Mentos. It's pretty non-sanctioned to me, but what do I know?
I mean, without even getting the whole Ukraine thing, I'll just bottom line it and tell you, if you don't already know, you've been lied to. There was never a chance that Ukraine was going to beat Russia, whatever you think of it. I don't even have very strong feelings about it because I'm not from there. I'm from the United States, but Russia's 100 million more people. I mean, it was always going to end, as it has, in the deaths of an entire generation of Ukrainians. It's the saddest thing I've ever seen. But it's not so different from what they've done to where you grew up. So if you could just explain the town you grew up in, what it was like, and what it's like now.
And when you look at a guy like that, when you look at a guy who presided over turning my great hometown of Norristown into a killing zone, who presides currently over Philadelphia, which is a killing zone, and is now going off and participating in the killing that's going on in Ukraine. You talked about religion, Tucker, and I just look at it and I say, this guy does not serve God, he serves death. The hospital that I was born in has been demolished. My high school is currently in the process of being demolished. And you want to know where all that money went? You want to know where all that economic opportunity went? Well, it's gone to places like Shanghai, and then now it's gone to places like Iraq, and then it went to places like Afghanistan, and now it's being sent to Ukraine to kill people, to kill Christians in a war that has nothing to do with us, that has nothing to do with the people in this room, and every single person in this room, by the way, is paying the cost. You're paying the cost of it in, number one, in terms of money, and then number two, if this thing continues and goes even further the way they want it to, you'll pay the cost in blood. The town I grew up in was incredible, and whatever people want to think about me or want to say about me, I would trade everything that I have, not my family, but all like the material things that I have, if I could just have my town back. If I could just have my town back. Because to me, to be successful meant moving to a nicer part of my town, or like a bigger house at the other end of the street. I didn't have any dreams of like being up on stage with Tucker Carlson or any of this stuff, and it was the kind of town where, my family comes from Poland, as I mentioned, and we've been in Norristown for 100 plus years, and every single member of my family was baptized at the same church until my son, Jack, who's sitting out there. Jack, not too many video games. We had the same church, we pretty much lived in the same block. I grew up in the same house that my father grew up in when he was a little boy, because that's what you did. And the children that I played with were the kids of the children that my father played with, and his father before. And your whole world was a couple of blocks. And and everybody knew everybody, and it was good. It wasn't the nicest place in the world, it wasn't the most fantastic, nobody was ever writing, songs about it or anything, but it was a good place where honest, hardworking people could make a living, could go home and make enough for their families, and then go home and maybe catch an Eagles game after work. And the library was in walking distance, and I used to go down to the library and read a lot. And my mom would let me go by myself when I got a little bit older, but then she stopped letting me go to the library by myself when the homeless people that kept being let in were stabbing each other in there. In this Montgomery County Public Library, go look it up.
I did go look it up, and I spent a good amount of time trying to find this, and I could not find a lot of stabbings from homeless people in Montgomery County Public Library. In fact, I couldn't find any. So maybe Jack Posobiec has posted about this at some point. I didn't go on his Twitter, but I couldn't find all these rampant stabbings back then in Montgomery County Public Library from unhoused persons. But I did take his advice and go look, but he acted like it would be really easy to find all these stabbings and that they were so rampant. But I couldn't find them.
That this became a place for transients and vagrants, and then all of a sudden during the 1990s, Section 8 started coming in, and all the other federal programs started coming in, and then, oh yes, Norristown got turned into a sanctuary city. So after that, we got all the illegals that flooded over, destroyed the healthcare system because they go where? They go to the emergency room for their healthcare. So I actually wrote a letter to the editor in the paper saying, we shouldn't do this because it's going in end of the 90s. There's some, I don't even know.
Jumping in again, because he states that he wrote this in the 90s, sometime in the 90s, and he didn't remember how old he was. Well, Norristown was not a sanctuary city, and Montgomery County, where Norristown and Reading and these cities are, Montgomery County did not even talk about becoming a sanctuary county until 2016 when Trump was elected as president, and he started with all of his immigration reforms and things of that nature. Now, there are some sanctuary counties in Pennsylvania. It's a pretty low amount. I want to say there's less than 20, 15 to 20 of them. I can't remember the exact amount. And sanctuary counties and what people think of those in sanctuary cities, it varies, and it's not exactly what the right or even some of the media portrays. It is vastly different from county to county, city to city, and what they do. You can look this up on the website for Montgomery County and actually see what it consists of. And there is actually legislation right now they're trying to get through in PA to get rid of these sanctuary counties. But no, it wasn't happening in the 90s. Jack's lying, and he's trying to feed on the fears of people watching this or anybody living in Pennsylvania who actually believes this and doesn't go out and fact check.
And I said, we shouldn't do this because this is going to overload and overwhelm our healthcare system. And as I just mentioned, the hospital that I was born in is now a vacant lot next to a Planned Parenthood clinic. And that's whatever, that's my story, but that's not a unique story to talk about. And I'm sure most of the people in this room either lived through something like this or know people who live something like this. And what I have come to learn, that it's by politicians like Josh Shapiro and politicians like Joe Biden from Scranton and all the others who have done this to us, Tucker. This was done by design. People were taken for granted, their lives were destroyed, their communities were destroyed, and I do not have any explanation for it other than they serve death and they hate the people they're supposed to represent.
Well, since Jack brought in Biden and said that he has no reason other than they serve death and they hate their people and things of that nature, I thought I would talk about Johnstown, PA. It's in Cambria County. It's a town I know very well. Trump campaigned here when he was first running for president. He's been back several times and held campaign events. I don't know if you can pick that up, but that's what it's like to live in a rural town. That is our fire whistle from our volunteer fire company. And I once asked one of our volunteer firefighters why we still have those because of technology we have today, such as beepers and cell phones and things of that nature. And it is because we live in a rural area and we have a lot of hunters who go out for turkey season, all other kinds of seasons, that we have here, deer and things of that nature. So if they're in the woods, they can hear that and come respond to emergencies and fires and things of that nature because they're so dedicated to the volunteer work that they do. So if you can pick up that is our fire whistle. You know, it's not a hurricane or anything, but we still do have the volunteer fire whistles that go off. This is an article that I've shared before about Johnstown, PA, and it's a follow-up a year after President Trump has been in office, going back to talk to the same Trump supporters who had voted for him and to see if they still support him and things of that nature. And it's from Politico, and the title is Johnstown Never Believed Trump Would Help. They Still Love Him Anyway. In a depressed former steel town, the president's promises don't matter as much as they once did. And like I said, I do know this town. I know the area. I've been there many times, very familiar. It's a very economically depressed area. It has been for a long time. And politicians from all sides of the aisle have really let the town down. It hasn't been the same really since Martha passed away. And he used to fund a lot of pork belly spending to the area. Not only that, but military contracts were in Johnstown a lot. The NDIC used to be there, the National Drug Intelligence Center, a branch of it. That got shut down. Like Johnstown just really has never really recovered. And even during the time of Martha, it was good, but it wasn't great. But it really has never bounced back since the steel mills closed and the coal mining industries around it and things of that nature. At a raucous rally in late October, right downtown in their minor league hockey arena, he vowed to restore the mines and the mills that had been the lifeblood of the region until they started closing some 40 years ago, triggering the American carnage Trump would talk about in his inaugural address: massive population loss, shrinking tax rolls, communal hopelessness, and ultimately a raging opioid epidemic. When Trump won, people here were ecstatic. They had heard generations of politicians making big promises before, and they were also impatient for him to deliver. A year later, the local unemployment rate has ticked down, and activity in a few coal mines has ticked up. I'll talk about the coal mines real quick. The one coal mine that opened up was shipping their particular coal to China because they had a big demand for it. And Pennsylvania has various types of coal, and that just particular mine was mining that type of coal and shipping it to China. So it didn't create a lot of jobs because it was just specifically for that type of coal that China needed. It wasn't the kind of coal that we around this area could put into our furnaces if you have a coal furnace or anything like that. Like I said, we have various different kinds of coal around here. And the mines here are they're never going to come back. I looked a couple years ago, and I think in the United States, there are 40 to 50,000 coal miners in the profession. It's just a fact of life. My dad used to work in the mines. He was a construction worker for the mines. He has black lung now. It's a dangerous profession. I know people have back injuries, legs, arms, you name it. It's a dangerous job. Some people I know have done the retraining programs. Some people I know have just left the industry because of job instability. Mining's it's just that way. I don't think the coal mines are ever going to make a comeback. And that's the reality of the area I live in Western PA. It's just a fact. It's just what it is. But anyways, I just wanted to talk about that one coal mine because that's the one Trump touted all the time. And it was largely opened because it was shipping that particular type of coal overseas to China. Beyond that, though, not much has changed, at least not for the better. Johnstown and the surrounding region are struggling in the same way and for the same reasons. The drug problem is just as bad. Quote, "There's nothing good in the area," Schilling said the other day in her living room. Quote, "I don't have anything good to say about anything in this area. It's sad." Even so, her backing for Trump is utterly undiminished. Quote, "I'm a supporter of him 100%. I wasn't prepared for how readily some of these same people had abandoned the contract he had made with them. Their satisfaction with Trump now seemed untethered to the things they once said mattered to them the most." Quote, "I don't know that he has done a lot to help," Freer told me. "Last year, she said she wouldn't vote for him again if he didn't do what he said he was going to do. Last week, she said matter-of-factly that she would, quote, support Trump. Sure, she said, I like him. When I asked Del Signori about the past year here, he said, quote, he didn't see any change because we got a new president. He nonetheless remains an ardent proponent. He's our answer. I asked Schilling what would happen if the next 3 years go the way the past one has. Quote, I'm not going to blame him, Schilling said. Absolutely not. Is there anything that could change her mind about Trump? Quote, nope, she said. Johnstown voters don't intend to hold the president accountable for the non-negotiable pledges he made to them. It's not that the people who made Trump president have generously moved the goalpost for him. It's that they eliminated the goalpost altogether. And that's very true of a lot of people I know who voted for Trump. Posobiec, a lifelong Johnstown resident and one of the city's few remaining business titans, was a staunch supporter of Trump. He has largely been pleased with his performances as president so far, he said. But Posobiec said he does wish Trump would try to be more bipartisan and more deliberative, and also that he and his administration would pay as much attention to Johnstown now as he did during the campaign. Quote, we've been trying to reach out to him to say, hey, remember us, we need help here, he told me. That's my only frustration. I'd just like to tell Trump, hello, we're still here, we're ready for you. Trump delivered in person at War Memorial Arena last October. Quote, your government betrayed you, and I'm going to make it right, he told them. We're putting your miners back to work, he told them. Your jobs will come back under a Trump administration, he told them. Your steel will come back, he told them. The change you have been waiting for will finally arrive, he pledged. He said he was going to bring the steel mills back. Quote, you're never going to get those steel mills back, she said. But he said he was going to, I said. Yeah, but how is he going to bring them back? I don't know, I said. But it's what he said last year, and people voted for him because of it. They always say they're going to bring the steel mills back, Freer said, but they're going to have to do a lot of work to bring those steel mills back. He hasn't built the wall yet either. I don't care about his wall, said Freer, 76. I mean, if he gets his wall, I don't give a shit, you know. But he has a good idea. Keep him out. He also hasn't repealed Obamacare. That's Congress, she said. And the drug scourge here continues unabated. And it's not going to improve for a long time, she said, until people learn, which they won't. But I like him, Freer reiterated, because he does what he says. Does he? Is he doing what he says? More than anything, what seemed to upset the people I spoke with was the National Football League players who have knelt during the national anthem to protest police brutality and racial inequality. Quote, as far as I'm concerned, Freer told me, if I was the boss of those teams, I would tell them, you get your asses out there and you play, or you're not here anymore. They're paying their salaries, for God's sakes. Quote, the thing that irritates me to no end is this NFL shit, Schilling told me in her living room. I'm about ready to go over the top with this shit. We don't watch no NFL now. They're Dallas Cowboys fans. Quote, we banned them. We don't watch them. Schilling looked at her husband, David McCabe, who's 67, and a retired high school basketball coach. She nodded at him. Tell him, she said to McCabe, what you say the NFL is. McCabe looked momentarily weary. He laughed a little. I don't remember saying that, he said unconvincingly. Schilling was having none of it. You're the one who told me, liar, she said. She looked at me. The NFL? And this is a slur for black people. Ends for life, Schilling said. For life, McCabe added. And that's Johnstown, Pennsylvania, that Trump had 4 years to save and really show he cared about the people. And he didn't, Jack. I don't know. What do you think about that? Does he love death? Does he not care about people? I'm not sure. I don't know. Just, politicians make promises and they break them all the time. It's a sad reality of the world we live in with our politicians and the people we elect. It's really shitty. Both sides do it. To be fair, Joe Biden visited Johnstown, PA too. I mean, it is what it is. Politicians do this shit all the time. They're really shitty. But don't try to say it's one side and it's not the other, because it's both.
It will not stop until people get together and they vote and they take action and they do the ballots and the activity and the work, because every single time something like this is going on around the world, whether it be Russia and the Bolsheviks, whether it be China, whether it be Spain, whether it be France and the French Revolution, all of the insanity continues on until the people of that country, the people of the state, rise up and say no. Absolutely not. No more. You've gone too far. You will not cross this line anymore, and we are going to stop you. And we're going to find a leader, and even if you try to kill that leader, and even if you try, which by the way, right in the state, Butler, PA, you know, where they tried to take out Donald Trump on stage, funny how it is that Josh Shapiro doesn't seem interested in that investigation, doesn't seem interested in finding out who fired that bullet or why, and didn't provide the Pennsylvania State Police that he should have that day. We're writing an entire book about this. That, bulletproof, he's got it. That you realize that at some point, Tucker, is it indifference, is it incompetence, or is it complicity?
Let's talk about the assassination attempt on President Donald Trump in Butler, PA, and the PA State Police. Got this from the Alaska Beacon, dated July 25th, 2024. State Police warned Secret Service about Trump shooter, police chief says. Pennsylvania's top police officer faced questions Tuesday from lawmakers who wanted details on how the U.S. Secret Service and state and local law enforcement communicated when a gunman attempted to assassinate former President Donald Trump, killed one rallygoer, and injured two others in Butler, Pennsylvania. State police relayed information to the U.S. Secret Service of a suspicious man with a rangefinder roughly 20 to 25 minutes prior to the July 13th shooting, and that a photo of him was texted to a phone number provided by the federal agency. The hours-long hearing before the U.S. House Committee on Homeland Security occurred as lawmakers continued to probe how an agency tasked with protecting the nation's current and former leaders could allow a 20-year-old wielding a rifle to reach the rooftop in such close proximity to Trump. Pennsylvania State Police Commissioner Colonel Christopher Paris testified that in the lead-up to Trump taking the stage in Butler, authorities were responding to several simultaneous incidents: heat-related illnesses among attendees, a missing 6-year-old, and that they also had eyes on 4 suspicious individuals, including Thomas Matthew Crooks of Bethel Park, who was later killed by a Secret Service counter-sniper and identified as the shooter. Paris said that he could not speak to the minute-by-minute timeline of events, but told lawmakers that 2 Butler County Emergency Services Unit officers assigned to monitor the area, including the rooftop, left their post to locate the man who had been spotted with a rangefinder. State police participated in a walkthrough of the site on July 11th and were told by Secret Service that Butler County ESU would be responsible for monitoring the rooftop where the gunman perched days later, Paris said. Secret Service was the lead agency, Paris said. Paris told the committee that his agency's role in supporting federal law enforcement during presidential and other high-profile visits is routine, and that his force provided the Secret Service with everything they requested. So Jack is once again lying, and the head of the Pennsylvania State Police has testified, and there's an ongoing investigation going on. So Jack doesn't even have all the information yet. Again, he's just trying to sell a book, and you'll see what else he's trying to do.
Well, I'll tell you something else. Here's the good news on that front. So they tried to take out Trump once, and we said we're going to write an entire book about it in like a month, which we did. And then they tried to take him out again, a second time, even before we finished that. So we put that part in the second book as well. And that guy, funny enough, Tucker, wouldn't you believe, had just come from overseas. Do you know where the second shooter just came from, Tucker? Ukraine. He came from Ukraine, where he was a foreign fighter over there who had received training and then used that training to come here to this country to try to kill the one person who's trying to stop all of the things that we just talked about from happening.
Okay, briefly, let's talk about the second attempt. And this is from the Washington Post, dated September 18th, 2024. The title is A Journey from North Carolina to Ukraine to Suspect in Apparent Assassination Attempt. Nearing 60, he was running a small business building tiny homes and sheds in Hawaii. He had tried to reinvent himself by volunteering to fight in Ukraine, but was rejected. He had no assets, no retirement savings, no bank account. he wrote in an ebook describing his time in Ukraine that he predicted no one would read. The International Legion of Ukraine's armed forces turned him down because of his age and inexperience, according to an interview Ralph gave in 2022. Ukraine's Ministry of Defense said Ralph never served with its foreign volunteers. Instead, Ralph set up a tent in Kiev's central Independence Square and spent several weeks camped there before the structure was removed by police. Does that sound like somebody who is being trained to fight over there in Ukraine? Not to me. He cut a distinctive figure. His hair was dyed yellow and blue, the colors of the Ukrainian flag, and he often wore a Stars and Stripes t-shirt. He sought attention from foreign media as the war raged on. Talk, a French freelance journalist, said Ralph approached him in June 2022 and asked to be filmed in Independence Square. In the video, Ralph speaks directly in front of a display that he created with 50 flags that he said represented the nationalities of people who had volunteered to fight with Ukraine. Evelyn Alshbrenner, an American who served in the administration of the Ukrainian International Legion until June, told Ralph by text message late last year to stop his, quote, absurd efforts to recruit Afghan soldiers to fight in Ukraine. Quote, "You're absolutely not helping anything by doing this," Alshbrenner wrote. Quote, "Please do less." There are a lot of articles out there on Ralph, and there's a great Twitter thread about an organization warning people not to take text messages from him, not to donate to his GoFundMe, and things of that nature, which I will post in my sources. He is a mentally unwell man, and he wasn't doing anything in Ukraine other than causing disruption and things of that nature. But there are a lot of articles out there if you search about him, but I will post some other links. But let's continue on with Jack and Tucker.
We're launching our own investigation into what went on, and we've hired a private investigator. Some of them are actually in the crowd today, just so you know. And we are going to be expanding that investigation from Bethel Park to Butler, down to West Palm Beach, all the way out to Hawaii. Tucker, we're going to go to Ukraine if we have to. We are going to get to the bottom of what happened. We're calling it the Bulletproof Project. I just don't trust any of these people. I don't trust any of these people. Be careful in Ukraine. I may not go personally again over there. What people need to understand is the bounty and the 5 assassination teams are tied. It's like they're actually competing for this bounty. Donald Trump's very life is on the line, and every time he goes up to speak now, he has to stand behind what I call leftist glass because they keep trying to kill him. He's a brave man, I must say. Whatever you think of Trump.
And that's it for episode 1. We're going to end with Jack Posobiec and Tucker Carlson's part. Episode 2 will focus solely on Alex Jones's part of the event, and there will be a follow-up about our experiences and discussions we had after the event. Thank you for listening to episode 1, and I will see you back for episode 2. I don't need new tires, but stay tuned for the next episode.